Hello, everyone. Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in MHA with the Jujutsu Gacha system, Part 3. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it.
The reverse cursed technique, a rare and exclusive ability in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. The process of turning negative energy into positive energy is simple in theory. A negative multiplied by another negative creates a positive. That should mean that I should be able to multiply my cursed energy by itself to create reversed cursed energy. Sadly, it wasn't that simple. Reversed cursed energy, or RCT, is mainly used to heal oneself or another. The latter is much harder to do, considering only 3 characters could do so in JJK. Those being Shoko, Yuta, and Sukuna. Not even the strongest sorcerer of the modern era, Gojo Satoru, could heal someone else with his RCT. RCT is capable of healing large wounds, poison effects, or even healing an entire lost limbs back. Thus, having the RCT in your arsenal is a massive boon. There was also another bonus effect of the RCT besides healing. That is the ability to fuel one's cursed technique with positive energy to create its reversal. Gojo's reversal, Red, is a prime example. The only caveat of RCT is its formidable complexity. It's incredibly hard to use and understand, a challenge that only a handful of Jujutsu sorcerers in JJK have managed to overcome. Those sorcerers were either geniuses or extremely talented at Jujutsu. The skill ceiling on this technique was practically among the stars, considering that I've failed to grasp how to use it over the past 6 years. Not even the boost of CE understanding granted to me from a Black Flash helped me get any closer to understanding the core of cursed energy. I really hope I don't have to be nearly killed like Gojo to understand RCT. Even then, I doubt it's a guaranteed skill to learn when I'm bleeding out. Standing atop the rooftop of an old building in my Jujutsu uniform, I leaned against the gritty concrete, letting the cool evening air wash over me. Before me sprawled the city of Osaka, its skyline punctuated by a blend of sleek glass towers and aged brick structures, each one telling a story of its own. Cars raced along the avenues, their headlights streaking past like shooting stars against the darkness. I could hear the distant echoes of laughter and conversation, hints of life woven into the fabric of the night. The aromas of street food wafted up, teasing my senses with the promise of adventure and indulgence. There he is. I looked down at a lone male student with black, unkempt hair. He had such a striking resemblance to Izuku that one wouldn't be remiss in assuming her Sashi cheated on Inko. He was dressed in an expensive-looking school uniform as he walked down the lone street towards his home. "Hello there, Saito," I muttered as my black tattoos burned to life. Brushing my hair back, I grinned at the unsuspecting student. "About time you showed up." I raised my hands, fingers spread, placing one in front of the other while my thumbs hooked on one another. New. General POV. "Yes, Mom. I'm fine. Just a little tired," Saito said as he spoke on his phone. "I should be home in a few minutes. Okay? Alright, see you soon." Slipping his phone into his pocket, Saito jumped as a deafening roar echoed around him. Saito turned with his heart racing in his chest, just in time to see a shadowy form swoop down from the darkening sky. What was that? Saito thought as he looked around the sky in fright. A villain. Before he could scream or run, a thick, tight pressure latched onto his shoulders, lifting him effortlessly into the air. Panic surged through Saito as he dangled high above the ground from the invisible force, his home city sprawling like a patchwork quilt below. "Saito, right?" A sudden voice said from above, causing Saito to look up and see a hooded figure somehow standing in thin air above as they flew through the sky. Who are you? What is this?" Saito's yells pierced the blowing winds as he thrashed and kicked, but whatever was holding him had an ironclad grip. Sukuna grinned at Saito but remained silent. Saito yelled in fright as they jerked upwards into the air. They grew higher and higher, up until the point that the city below seemed so small. "Oh God! Oh God!" Saito muttered in terror as his body came to a stop in place in the sky. "So high. I'm going to die." "Don't worry. You won't die," Sukuna said as he looked down at Saito with a grin. That is if you do as I say. What do you want? It's simple really. A month and a half ago, a girl named Toga Himiko stabbed you and drank your blood, allegedly, Sukuna said as his voice turned cold and uncaring, a far cry from the playful tone he had before. You're going to drop all charges against her, and you're going to tell the police that you attacked her. Acting in self-defense, she defended herself with a box cutter she found on the ground. There was a struggle, and you ended up stabbed. Toga then tried to help you, but it was misinterpreted as her drinking your blood by a scared and confused onlooker. What? That's not what happened. That Saito was interrupted when his left shoulder was suddenly released, causing him to yell as he swung around from solely his right shoulder. His old stab wound burned to life, sending pain through his chest. Saito's eyes turned down to the city below, and fear began to squeeze his throat. Don't drop me. Help! Saito screamed as tears streamed from his eyes. Tell me, Saito, what happened that day you were stabbed? Sukuna said coldly with his hands in his pockets. I suggest you be honest. Saito's eyes grew wide and finally closed with resignation. I attacked Toga-san. She was scared and defended herself. She stabbed me in self-defense. It was my fault, not hers. Sasayaka-chan was confused about what she saw that day. Toga-san was trying to help me, not de-drink my blood. That's what happened. Good. Very good. Now that your memory has been refreshed, I suggest you talk to the detective in charge of your case and enlighten him about what actually happened. Is that understood? Sukuna said as Saito felt the invisible force on his right shoulder begin to loosen. Yes, I understand. Excellent. Oh, and Saito. Sukuna leaned down to peer at Saito with a steady gaze. Don't think about telling anyone about this or going back on your word, because I will find you and your family. Trust me, you don't want that to happen. Saito looked away from Sukuna's terrifying, cold eyes and nodded. His cries overtook his ability to speak correctly. I'm glad you understand. Now, let me take you home. I'm sure you don't want to keep that dear mother and that sweet little brother of yours waiting, Sukuna said as they began flying through the now night sky. Don't worry about Sayaka. Her story will match yours. Trust me. General Pyo, Detective Yoichi slumped into his worn-out armchair, the kind that had molded to his body over the years. His grey hair, once full, was beginning to thin at the temples. His once bright eyes now seemed dulled, with dark circles forming beneath them as he looked around his home. The faint light from the street lamp outside cast long shadows in the dimly lit living room, where the clock ticked away in a steady rhythm. Yoichi's coat was crumpled on the floor. He surveyed the room, a mix of unwashed coffee mugs and scattered case files cluttering the coffee table, each one a testament to the relentless grind of his job. The harsh memories of the day, crime scenes that haunted him, the grief-stricken faces of victims' families, flickered through his thoughts like an old film reel. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, trying to ease the tension coiled there. Standing up, Yoichi passed his coffee table, where several past-due medical bills sat alongside a framed picture. The picture was of Yoichi, a brown-haired woman, and a little girl hugging a teddy bear. The picture was of what one could call the perfect family. Stepping out to his balcony, Yoichi pulled out a box of cigarettes and slid out a stick, lighting it with a small, engraved lighter. Yoichi placed the cigarette in his mouth and took a long drag. Each minute felt like an hour, each hour lifetime. Yoichi recalled the nights they used to spend together, reading his daughter her favorite stories as she snuggled close, her giggles echoing through the house. Now, all he could do was pray for her recovery, reliving moments of joy that seemed so distant now. Thinking of his sick daughter, Yoichi felt a growing headache. What if the doctors couldn't find the right treatment? What if... No, I can't let myself think that way. Yoichi thought as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. Having finished his current cigarette, Yoichi pulled out another. Just as he was about to light it, the lights within his house turned off. Looking over his shoulder through his glass sliding door, Yoichi froze. He then took a deep breath to calm himself and walked inside. Calm down. I must have forgotten to pay the electric bill. Yoichi thought as he walked over to the light switch on the wall. Flipping it, He froze when he saw a hooded figure sitting on his recliner, the framed picture of his long-dead wife and daughter in his gloved hand. Glancing over to where he left his service weapon, Yoichi began to slowly slide over to it. "Don't," Sukuna said as he placed the frame down on the recliner's armrest. "You'll be dead before you get anywhere close." "Who are you?" Yoichi hissed, his nerves firing. Despite his fear, he kept himself calm. His decades' worth of police experience kicked in. "What are you doing in my home?" Sukuna ignored him in favor of lifting up one of his newest case files. Yoichi recognized it immediately. It was the Toga family case. "I'm here to talk to you about this. You will come upon a sudden breakthrough with the case tomorrow. Shuji Saito and Imiko Sayaka can no longer continue the lie, and they will finally tell the truth about what happened that night when young Saito attacked Toga Himiko. I believe their confessions will finally close the case." Yoichi swallowed the built-up saliva in his mouth, his face covered in a nervous sweat. "What have you done to those children?" "Me? Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. I merely suggested they come clean. Embrace the truth," Sukuna said as he rose to his feet. Yoichi noticed the black tattoos on his lower face. "Your job, detective, is to use their confessions to clear Toga Himiko's name. Drop all of the criminal charges on her. You're asking me to twist the truth. Cover Toga Himiko's crimes." Yoichi grits out, his hands clenched into fists. "I refuse." Sukuna grinned at his response as if expecting it. He then reached into his jacket pocket and brought out a smartphone. On the screen was a video. A live video. Yoichi's eyes slowly grew wide in terror as he saw the live feed on the phone. The video was of someone recording his sleeping daughter in her hospital room from outside her private room. The video then shifted to show a masked person looking down at the camera before moving back to the young, sick girl. "This is your daughter, right? I'm sorry to hear about the cancer. It's just not fair," Sukuna said as he tossed the phone at Yoichi. The man quickly caught the device, his face contorted in fear and worry. "Kyushu University Hospital. A very good hospital. A very expensive hospital." Sukuna walked over to the coffee table where several unpaid bills were sitting. He then threw down a photo of Yoichi talking to several tattooed men. "Now, why would a highly decorated detective like yourself be seen talking to the local Yakuza?" "I borrowed money from them," Yoichi said in defeat as he slowly fell to his knees. "I was there to pay off some of my debt." Slam. Yoichi jumped when a black duffel bag full of several stacks of 10,000 yen bills was dropped on his coffee table. "There. Your debt is paid," Sukuna said as he looked over at Yoichi. "There will even be enough left to pay off those pesky hospital bills for your little girl. Maybe even some for her university tuition. Why are you doing this?" Sukuna said nothing and walked over to stand beside Yoichi. Sukuna then grabbed the top of his hood and pulled it back to reveal his young, tattooed face. "You know who I am." "Yes. Those tattoos. Those clothes. You're him. You're Sukuna." "Correct. You do know what me showing you my face means, don't you?" Yoichi looked away from Sukuna's cold, expressionless face and nodded. The seasoned detective knew what Sukuna was implying. Now that he knew what he looked like, Yoichi and, by extension, his daughter's lives now belonged in the hands of this competent and dangerous individual. Detective-eyed Yoichi was now in Sukuna's pocket. "I do." "Good. Now, here's what you're going to do for me." Shimizu Saotapiri. I slid down a brick wall in some dirty alleyway with a groan. I yanked my hood off my head as my tattoos melted away. I rubbed my eyes with the back of my forearm and let out a long sigh. Damn, that was harder than I thought. I, of course, had no real intentions of hurting any of the people I threatened tonight. It was all a big bluff in the guise of the threat of bloody murder. Yes, a bluff. While I may have gone a bit overboard with Saito, my whole plan relied on him following through. His confession was pivotal for the case to be thrown out to ensure Himiko's freedom. While I did feel a bit bad about turning him into the attacker and possibly ruining his life, I quickly didn't care. Himiko came first. That meant I had to put the fear of God into him. When it came to threatening Sayaka, The girl who witnessed Himiko drinking from Saito like a cup of juice, I kinda ended up making her cry. Like a lot. Damn, that girl was an ugly crier. But at least I knew she wouldn't talk. Threatening to burn her house down with her and her family inside was rather effective. I was worried things were going to get dicey when it came to the detective. Thankfully, my carefully crafted plan worked to get him in my back pocket. Sure, it cost me a bag of cash and beating up a crew of Yakuza, but it was a long-term investment. He would be my prime source of information when it came to the police or any ongoing investigations with the heroes. Hopefully, my money would help his kid. Oh, look. I do have a heart. As insurance, I had a crow watching each of them just to be safe. Despite not completely agreeing with my evil methods, I couldn't disagree that they were effective in getting my chess pieces to move where I wanted them to. The only piece left was to take down the king piece. The king piece being Himiko's parents. This time, however, I was rather excited about threatening them. Depending on how they reacted, I wouldn't be opposed to actually going through with my threats. Now then. I pulled out my phone and looked up the Toga family name. Where to start? General P. Toga Kazuhito adjusted his tie as he stepped out of the Love Hotel behind him, ready to make the journey home now that some of his stress had been relieved. The dark, bustling streets were alive with the sounds of honking horns, chattering pedestrians, and the distant strains of music wafting from nearby cafes. Kazuhito was a man in his late 40s with dark blonde hair and yellow eyes. He had an angular face with droopy, tired eyes. The man was dressed in his business attire while a suitcase swung back and forth in his hand. He navigated through the throngs of people, his briefcase swinging lightly at his side. The aroma of street food filled the air, from sizzling ramen to sweet street desserts, tempting him to pause and indulge. Exactly like he did with the whore he hired on a weekly basis. A habit he picked up ever since that monster did what she did, ruining his family name. Kazuhito's mind traveled back in time to when the demon that was once his daughter was once his sweet little girl. However, it all changed when he and his wife saw her holding a bleeding bird with a large, evil smile. It was then that he realized her true nature. Why? Why did I help give birth to a thing like that? Kazuhito thought as he rubbed his tired face. Why couldn't she have been like her brother or sister? As he strolled along the crowded sidewalks, Kazuhito took in the sights of the city that once seemed so vibrant. Now, it was colorless and dull before his eyes. The muffled sounds of distant traffic faded as he turned into a dimly lit alley, seeking a shortcut to his car. Entering the parking lot where his car was located, Kazuhito reached into his pocket for his car keys. Suddenly, his nose twitched as he sensed a presence behind him. This was thanks to his quirk, which was called Blood Radar. His quirk allowed him to feel the presence of anyone with blood. However, it was rather weak and only expanded out to 2.5 meters. Turning around, Kazuhito looked around at the empty parking lot with confusion. Did I imagine it? Kazuhito muttered. An unnerving silence fell over the parking lot. Not even the constant sounds of the bustling city could be heard. Out of nowhere, the sound of approaching footsteps filled the once quiet air. Before Kazuhito could react, a pair of strong hands grabbed him, pulling him into the darkness. Panic surged through him as he struggled against their incredibly strong grip. But before he could yell for help, a cold liquid material slithered over his mouth before solidifying, silencing him. He caught a glimpse of the figure above him. It was a black hooded individual dressed in a white, high-collar shirt. But what caught Kazuhito's eyes were the tattoos on his attacker's face. That and the large, bloodthirsty smile on his face. Kazuhito's heart raced. He had no idea what the hooded figure wanted. All he knew was that this individual was much stronger than him. Despite that, Kazuhito tried his best to escape their hold before a heavy blow landed on the side of his head. As his consciousness left him, Kazuhito heard the figure finally speak. "Be sure to wake up soon, Toga-san," Sukuna said mockingly. "You and I have a lot to talk about." Shimizu Sautapu. The room I stood in loomed large, an expanse of faded shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. The high ceiling was lost in the darkness, where cobwebs hung like tattered curtains, swaying slightly with the occasional draft. The air is thick and stale, carrying a musty odor. Walls painted a once bright color are now dulled by time, are cracked and peeling, and reveal the bare, rough stone beneath. In one corner, an old wooden chair stands as a solitary piece of furniture, its surface scratched and splintered. Flickering light from a solitary overhead bulb casts erratic shadows across the floor, where dust particles swirl like tiny ghosts caught in a dance. The floorboards creaked ominously underfoot as I stepped up to the sleeping man. Smack! "Wake up already," I said as I watched Himiko's dad wake up from his little nap. Plus 10 SP. He blinked as he shook his head, eyes blinking in confusion. Kazuhito tried to move, but the fact that I tied his arms and legs to a rickety old steel chair made it an impossible task. Smack. Plus 10 SP. I slapped the blonde man again, interrupting his dumb question. Kazuhito grunted and spat out some blood onto the dirty floor from the force of my slap. He turned to me with fear in his eyes as I stood still and continued to stare at him. There were no words. No sounds were made between us. Just silence. Gus Fring, Walter White, Anton Chigurh, Tywin Lannister, and many more were the characters I channeled for the more sinister parts of Sukuna's personality I used during my nightly escapades. Who knew wasting so many hours of my past life watching so many movies and TV shows would come in so handy? Please. I have a wife and children. Smack. Plus 15 SP. How funny, I said in a low voice. An unfaithful cheating husband who called one of his children a demon and threw her away at the first sign of trouble is using his family to bargain for his life. Don't you think it's funny? The tied-up toga patriarch looked down at his bare feet, his eyes tearing up. Seeing this caused me to glare at the man. What do you want from me? I looked behind the man, where one of my toad Shikigami sat, nodding. The toad shot out its tongue and wrapped it around Kazuhito's throat. The man grunted as he was pulled back to the point where the chair he sat on teetered back and forth from its back legs. Kazuhito looked around in fear as he tried to maintain the chair's balance from whatever invisible force was holding him. His breathing was starting to become labored as my toad's tongue slowly began to tighten. I don't want anything from you, you failure of a father. I walked over to stand beside the man, my hands in my pockets. But I do want you to do something for your daughter, Toga Himiko. Plus 10 SP. Kazuhito's eyes grew wide in realization. The fear he once had in his eyes turned to shock and then anger, causing his already red face to become a bright crimson. She did this, didn't she? She hired you to do this to me. Kazuhito yelled with a red face, the pressure around his neck forgotten. That damn demon. I knew I should have smack. Plus 10 SP. For the first time in several years, I felt anger rise within me. To see what should have been Himiko's loving father yelling out her name as a curse caused me to grow cold. I was extremely tempted to put the man down like the rest of those rabid dogs I've encountered. It would be so easy. Just one quick twist of my wrist. But I controlled myself, even if this human trash deserved to die in my eyes. He was still Himiko's father. And I didn't want to hurt my friend by killing her father. Say another word about her, and I'll show you what an actual demon looks like. Do you understand? As I spoke, I had several blood tendrils slither out of my back. Their sharp ends slithered close to Kazuhito's face, ready to slice him to shreds. That clear. The blonde man's terrified eyes watched the sharp blood tendrils dance around in the air. With a quick nod, the man closed his eyes as if that would save him from his fate. Plus 10 SP, see crystal. Good. Very good. With a silent command, my toad Shikigami released Kazuhito, causing the man to cough and for his chair to land on all fours. I ignored the frightened man and retracted my blood back into me. Your daughter will soon be cleared of all her alleged crimes, I said calmly, my words sending a look of disbelief on Kazuhito's face. Any and all charges against her will be dropped, and her innocence will be established. She will be able to return to society to live her life as she pleases. Plus 15 SP. What? How is that possible? Himiko attacked and nearly killed her classmate. Kazuhito was confused and in disbelief. What you think doesn't matter. The fact remains that Himiko will be able to go home without fear of being arrested, I said before bringing out several forms from within my jacket. But she's not going home to you and your family. No, she won't have anything to do with you all anymore. Kazuhito looked at the papers I dropped on his lap with confusion. As he read the documents, his eyes grew wide. Plus 10 SP. Are you serious? I am. I then reached over to release his right arm. With his writing arm free, I held out a pen with a threatening expression. Now sign. My mind feels fuzzy. I rubbed the side of my head. I leaned into my couch, still dressed in my jujutsu uniform, as I sat in my dark living room. Zyko sat on the couch beside me, his derpy face looking at me with confusion, while an orange folder sat beside me. It was around 2 in the morning, and all the lights in my house were off, leaving my surroundings in darkness. The only light that illuminated the room was the moonlight that flooded the room from the open shoji door that led outside. My actions from tonight and the past few nights were starting to weigh on me. While my actions from the past week weren't as bad as the ones I've done during the last 2 years, which involved me hunting and killing the worst of the worst, they stood out more due to the fact I acted against innocent people. Except for Himiko's dad. Damn that guy. Did I do the right thing? I asked myself. Maybe there were other ways? Was what I did right? Of course not. I thought I would be okay with being the bad guy in order to help Himiko. To play into the role of Sukuna in order to free her, no matter the cost. But after everything was said and done, I found myself having second thoughts on whether or not I did the right thing. How annoying. Why is this so complicated? A pair of soft footsteps caused me to leave my conflicting thoughts. Looking behind me, I saw Himiko walk into the living room. Her hair was a loose mess, and she was dressed in an oversized shirt. She was rubbing one of her eyes as she walked over to me, causing me to discreetly slide the orange folder under the couch. Seeing that, Zyko slid off the couch and slithered over it. Sukuna-kun. Himiko said with a yawn. Her eyes focused on me and quickly grew wide in concern. What's wrong? Did something happen? No. Why do you ask? I said and plastered a smile on my face as I leaned on the couch. What are you even doing up? Himiko said nothing but continued to walk around the couch. Once in front of me, she sat down on the couch and shuffled over until her body was pressed onto mine. I blinked in confusion as she wrapped her arms around my shoulders and then pulled my head onto her chest with a small smile. When I was younger, Himiko spoke as she rubbed my hair. There were days when I was really sad and lonely. I wanted my mother to hold me just like this, to make it all go away. But she never did, not since that day. I said nothing as she continued to pet my hair, my earlier thoughts melting away. Well, do you feel better? Himiko asked me softly as she continued to hold me. Yeah, I think so. Plus 15 SP. I'm happy to hear that, Himiko said as she leaned her head on my own. I don't want to see the people I love look so sad, so whenever you feel down, I'll hold you just like this, okay? Love. I smiled in amusement as I sat up from her hold. Himiko smiled and nodded. Yes. I love you. You accept and understand me for who I am, and you let me suck your blood. You even gave me a home where I can be who I want, and you shared your friends with me, people I've come to love as well. Himiko blushed brightly and hugged my arm. You're important to me, Sukuna-kun. So I'll always be there for you, no matter what happens. I sat in silence as Himiko hummed a little song to herself as she continued to cling to my arm. I wasn't sure if the love Himiko felt for me was romantic or if she was just using the word as a term of endearment. Her canon self did throw that word around pretty loosely, after all. Then again, I supposed it didn't matter which one it was. Thank you, Himiko, I said, causing her to look at me in wonder. You just helped me come to terms with what I was struggling with. I did? Great. Plus 20 SP. I smiled at her as the two of us continued to sit on the couch, enjoying each other's presence and company. I see now. It doesn't matter what I have to do to keep those I care about safe and happy, even if it means threatening, torturing, or killing those who wish them harm. As cringe as it sounds, I'll do whatever it takes to keep those I care about safe. Because, in the end, they're all I really have in this world. General POV. Several of Japan's pro heroes were gathering together in a large meeting room. Among them were Eraserhead, Crust, Midnight, Edgeshot, Best Jeanist, Mako, and finally, Ingenium. These heroes were seated around a long table as 24 police officers stood in front of the room's walls. "Great, now that we're all here, we can begin," Detective Tsukochi Naomasa said as he walked up to the large projector screen in the front of the room. "I gathered you all here due to the urgency of the matter at hand." Naomasa pointed the small remote in his hand towards the projector screen. With a push, the projector came to life and displayed a blurry image of a hooded individual jumping from the rooftops of an undisclosed city. Eraserhead eyed the elusive figure he had spent the last year trying to track. "Sukuna. That cheating bastard." Mako yelled with her arms crossed as she glared over at the image. "Just wait until our rematch. I'll kick your ass." "Easy there, Mako," Midnight teased as she leaned back on her chair. "It's just a picture." "I know that. Damn it." "Yes, as some of you are already aware, the individual in this picture is the villain known by many as Sukuna, the King of Curses," Naomasa said as he clicked his remote again. The image changed to another image of Sukuna, but from a different angle. It was zoomed in to show off the bottom half of Sukuna's tattooed face, but due to the distance this picture was shot from, the image was extremely blurry. Naomasa looked away from the image and addressed the assembled heroes. "What we initially thought was a lone vigilante has quickly changed to become a dangerous murderer. He is now a suspect in several murders and assaults, making him a person of high interest to law enforcement. It appears that wherever Sukuna goes, violence and bloodshed follow. In just a short year, he has caused multiple deaths and has hospitalized those he chooses to spare. My sources indicate that the entire underworld of Japan does their best to avoid him. I don't understand," Ingenium, otherwise known as Ida Tensai, said. "What is his goal? There must be a reason why Sukuna is doing all this. Do the police have any leads as to why?" "At the moment, Sukuna's actions are unknown. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for his violent actions," Naomasa said with a troubled look. "That makes him unpredictable and extremely dangerous." "Indeed." Crust nodded his head before turning to an annoyed Mako. "However, what bothers me about Sukuna is the fact that Mako here fought and lost to him. I would have thought that a killer like him would have ended her life or even injured her to the point of retirement. He got a lucky shot. That's it." Mako shot up to her feet with an angry look. "The only reason I lost to that damn bastard was due to that cheap trick at the end. Regardless, Sukuna could defeat a pro hero of Mako's caliber," Best Genist said as he brushed his hair to the side. "That makes him extremely dangerous. He's no longer some small-time vigilante, criminal, or thug. He is a lethal villain. Tell us, Mako, about your fight with him. What quirk does Sukuna have?" Everyone turned to the bunny-themed heroine as she sat back down with a thoughtful expression. "That's the thing," Mako said as she crossed her arms under her chest. "I'm not sure. During our fight, he mainly stuck to using that super durable stuff. From our fight, Sukuna has incredible strength, speed, reflexes, and martial arts skills that let him keep up with me. But in the end, he made this odd hand motion, and I suddenly felt my instincts yell at me to run. And before I could get away, something grabbed me." "What do you mean by something?" Edgeshot asked as he looked over at Mako with curiosity. "It's hard to describe," Mako said, rubbing her hair in frustration. "It felt like an invisible force grabbed me and held me in place. My instincts were screaming that I was in extreme danger, as if I were trapped in the jaws of a powerful predator. But before I could even attempt to escape, Sukuna charged at me and knocked me out with one punch." Mako finished her account, feeling a mix of shame and anger. "So we have a highly skilled killer with an unknown quirk that can freeze someone in place," Eraserhead said with a sigh. "We're not in a good spot." "Indeed." Naomasa nodded as he looked out at everyone in the room. "Despite that, we can't continue to let Sukuna do as he pleases. We have to bring him to justice." "While I hate to admit this," Midnight said, gaining everyone's attention. "Despite his methods, Sukuna's actions have caused the crime rate to drop 15% over the last year to today. Now, I'm not saying what he's doing is okay. No, he's a killer, and he needs to be stopped. But at the same time, his mere presence is becoming a deterrent for criminals and villains alike." That's because the criminal underworld knows that Sukuna won't hesitate to kill them. That's not a deterrent. That's fear. And fear shouldn't be what stops evil or crime from occurring, Best Jeanist said as he leaned forward on the table. Sukuna must be stopped and charged for his heinous crimes. There will be no exceptions. Still, Eraserhead said with a sigh. Sukuna is also a large part of why several dozen kidnapped children have been able to go home. His motivations make no sense. Even so, Jeanist is correct. Sukuna is now one of our top priority targets, Naomasa stated as he accepted a stack of folders from one of his officers. He began passing the folders around to the gathered heroes. These contain all the information my team and I have gathered on him. For now, I recommend that anyone who encounters Sukuna immediately call for backup. He is not an opponent to be faced alone. I believe our best chance for victory is through a coordinated attack involving many pro-heroes working together. Midnight leaned over to the rabbit-themed hero. He's talking about you, Mako. Shut up. Enough, Eraserhead muttered as he received one of the folders. We have a lot to cover, so let's get to work. Shimizu Sautapu. In the tranquility of the early morning, I sat cross-legged on a worn mat in the center of my home's dojo. The air was still, carrying only the faint scent of sandalwood from the far-off burning incense. My eyes were gently closed, shielding me from the vibrant world beyond. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, then slowly exhaled, releasing any tension that clung to me. Find it. Find it. Find the core of cursed energy. With each breath, I focused on the rhythm of my chest rising and falling, allowing thoughts to drift like leaves on a gentle stream. I acknowledged them without judgment, letting them come and go, inviting a sense of calm to envelop me. My mind slowly began to settle like dust after a storm. Turn negative energy into positive energy. As I sank deeper into the stillness, a wave of serenity washed over me, grounding me in the present moment. At the same time, waves of cursed energy danced around my body like roaring flames. Time seemed to stretch, with each minute transforming into an eternity of peace. The sounds of the world outside faded away, replaced by the gentle rhythm of my heartbeat. It was then that I finally saw it. It was a flicker, barely a second. But I finally saw it. The core of cursed energy. But as fast as it came, it quickly disappeared just as I was about to reach out and grab it. Shit. I fell back on my back and looked up at the star-filled night sky. I was so close. It was right there. Damn it all. Still, despite my failure to grab the core of curse energy, I was still extremely happy to have finally gotten a glimpse of it after several months of meditation to reach it. It was only a matter of time before I learned the reversed curse technique. Sure, I could use round deer to heal myself, but I didn't want to rely on my Shikigami all the time. I needed to be able to heal my body on my own. I muttered as it finally hit me that I had meditated all day. Not again. Sukuna-kun. You're finally done. I was getting worried for a second there. I looked over to see Himiko dressed in her pajamas as she walked out of our house, a small smile on her face. In her hands was a bucket full of ice and water. Himiko. Yes. What's that bucket for? Oh, I was worried you turned to stone, so I was going to dump this on you to check. Plus 10 SP. Thanks. Himiko nodded and spun back to go back inside. You're welcome. I put your dinner in the fridge, by the way. I'm going to bed now. Good night. Yeah. Good night. I nodded numbly at her as she closed the sliding door before standing up. I moved around and stretched my stiff joints with a nervous expression. She had been in a lot better spirits after she had called Keiko, Izuku, and even my back to let them all know she was okay after running off that day. They had all accepted her apology rather quickly, causing Himiko to glow with glee, knowing that her new friends didn't hate her. She and Keiko were even in the talks of setting up some sort of get-together or sleepover with just the three girls. The fools. Good luck getting Mai to agree to come along. I need an alarm clock. As I was finishing my stretches, I grinned and decided to check on my luck today. With a snap of my fingers, the gacha machine that's been the bane of my new gambling addiction popped into existence. Total SP, 12,710. It's not gambling night, but let's see what you got for me tonight, Gacha gods. I'm feeling lucky, I said as I used enough points to get a platinum tier reward pull. Grabbing the glowing prize ball, I tossed it in the air with an amused smile before snapping it open. Heh, maybe I'll get a special grade cursed weapon? I wouldn't say no to the split soul katana. It'll go well with playful Cloud. You have pulled Gojo Satoru's cursed technique, Limitless. Rank, Platinum. I felt my breath leave me suddenly as I fell to my knees. The knowledge of how to use the Limitless filled my brain in an instant. This was it. I did it. Before I could jump for joy and thank the benevolent Gacha gods, my brain jerked to a stop when it sensed a missing qualification in order for me to use the Limitless technique. The 6 eyes. Crap baskets. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as Himiko and I settled into a corner booth at the cozy cafe. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the polished wooden tables. The gentle hum of conversation and the clinking of cutlery added to the inviting atmosphere. After receiving our orders, I sipped on my black coffee while Himiko indulged in a rich mocha, its chocolatey sweetness bringing a smile to her face, only for it to quickly melt into a nervous expression. Relax, Himiko. Trust me, it's all going to be fine. I do trust you. It's just, I can't help but be a little nervous, Himiko confessed, her eyes darting around the cafe, a hint of fear in them. Don't be, I said as I grabbed her hand. Everything is going to be fine. I made sure of it. Plus 20 SP, Himiko nodded and took another sip of her drink. Despite my attempt to calm her down, she still looked a little nervous. The two of us continued to wait for our guest in the cafe. With each bell ring of the cafe's door, Himiko seemed to grow even more nervous. He's here, I said without looking up while I sipped my second coffee. Himiko let out a cute squeak as the cafe's bell chimed once again. Entering the cafe was none other than Detective Yoichi. His aged eyes scanned the cafe before falling on me and Himiko. He froze momentarily when our eyes met. A slow grin rose on my face as I watched him swallow the lump in his throat. After taking a deep breath, Yoichi walked over to us and placed his briefcase on our table. As he sat down, Himiko slid over until her body was pressed against mine. Detective Ige, I said with an easygoing tone. My face was etched into one of superiority, resembling a certain kind of hero. I was beginning to think you wouldn't show. Plus 10 SP. Sorry. Getting everything in place took some time, Yoichi said as he opened his briefcase. He then looked over to Himiko. It's nice to finally meet you, Toga-san. I'm Detective Yoichi. I'm glad to see you're all right. Ah, yes, Himiko said without looking at the detective, her eyes scanning the windows and doors for any uninvited guests. Are you the one who has been handling my case? Indeed I am. Or at least, I was. Heh. Himiko said in confusion as Yoichi slid over several sheets of paper to her. Clicking on a pen, he held it out to Himiko. Write down your version of events from that day. Once I receive that, I'll take care of the remaining bits of the investigation to close it. It should be but another few days before I can clear you. Hey. Himiko said numbly. Clear me? What do you mean? Raising an eyebrow, Yoichi turned to me questioningly. I smiled innocently and took another sip of my drink. Sighing, Yoichi looked back to Himiko. Shuji Saito and Imiko Sayaka have revealed the truth about what actually happened at Karelia Junior High 3 months ago. Shuji Saito confessed to me that he attacked you because you rejected him. In anger, he tried to attack you. In order to defend yourself from a much larger and stronger attacker, you found a nearby box cutter and struck him. Imiko Sayaka has also admitted that she was under the influence of hallucinogenic drugs the day she witnessed the incident involving you and Saito. What she thought was you drinking his blood through a straw was actually a misinterpretation. Once her mind was cleared of the drugs, Sayaka was able to recall that, in actuality, you were attempting to give Saito first aid. Himiko blinked numbly and nodded. She then turned to me with a questioning glance, only to receive a smile from me. Plus 40 SP. Yes. That's right. Himiko said with a frown, leaning into the story. That's What happened? Yoichi closed his eyes and sighed, almost as if in disappointment. I see. I need you to retell those exact events in writing. Once I submit those, you will be cleared of any crimes and wrongdoing. You will be free to rejoin society with a clean record. Nodding, Himiko quickly began to do what she was told, but she stopped. What's going to happen to Saito-kun and Sayaka-chan? Himiko whispered, a tinge of regret in her voice. I glanced at her and watched as she waited for Yoichi's response. Saito is currently in a juvenile detention center where he will serve his time for his crime. Sayaka's case is still being determined. My guess is that she will also face some time in a detention center, but that's still to be determined by a judge. Yoichi said as he then reached into his briefcase to pull out another stack of papers. This is also for you, Toga-san. Accepting the papers, Himiko read them over with steadily widening eyes. For the first time today, a large, bright smile broke out on her face, a clear sign of her relief and joy. Is this for real? Indeed, Yoichi muttered and eyed me with a careful gaze, his caution evident. Your parents have signed a private agreement stating they will have no more to do with you and that any family ties you have with them are no more. As of today, you are free to live your life as you please. Does that mean that I'm free? Yes, Himiko, I said, causing the happy girl to turn to me. Tears pooled in her eyes. You're free now. Plus 250 SP. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the park as Himiko and I strolled along the winding path. The air was fresh, scented with blooming flowers and the distant aroma of a nearby food cart, where laughter mingled with the sound of sizzling. Look at those ducks, Himiko pointed, giggling softly as a cluster of mallards splashed in a small pond, quacking loudly as they fought over breadcrumbs tossed by an enthusiastic child. Her face was free of any medical mask or hood to hide her identity. I glanced over, a smile creeping onto my face. They seem to have their priorities straight, I replied, raising an eyebrow playfully. A perfect picture of chaos. As we walked, the leaves danced gently in the breeze, creating a soft rustle that blended harmoniously with the distant sounds of children playing. The park was alive. Couples were sprawled out on blankets, families were playing catch, and joggers zipped past, their feet thudding rhythmically against the path. You know, Himiko said thoughtfully, her cat-like eyes cloudy as she took in our surroundings. The world around us feels so magical right now. It feels like the world is slowing down just for me. I nodded, my gaze lingering on her as she sauntered with her hands behind her. Is that so? Makes you appreciate the little things, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. We continued walking side by side, her fingers brushing mine occasionally. Himiko took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin. I'm so happy I met you, she abruptly said, glancing up at me. It's thanks to you that my life's changed so much. I can finally be me. I shook my head and watched as an older couple walked past us, hand in hand. You don't have to thank me. I just did what I had to do to help my friend. Now, you can go back to school or do whatever you want. The sky's the limit. Plus 30 SP, Himiko's perpetual blush grew brighter, and she nodded as we approached a small gazebo surrounded by vibrant flower beds. As we stepped inside, her eyes lit up. Let's sit for a while, she suggested, gesturing to the weathered wooden benches. Sinking onto the bench, we shared a comfortable silence, watching the world around us. Children's laughter echoed in the distance, and for a moment, everything felt just right. I turned to her, my expression softening. Despite my brain telling me to shut up and enjoy the silence, a part of me wanted to open up. You know, I really enjoy these silent moments with you, Himiko. It's nice. Growing up, I used to be all alone after Keiko left. So having someone else to share the silence makes it a little easier. Himiko smiled, her heart fluttering at his words. Me too, Sukuna-kun. It's nice to just be here. Together. Plus 50 SP. The two of us sat in silence as we watched the world around us without much care for anything. Suddenly, all the terrible things I did to get to this point felt extremely worth it. Seeing Himiko's relaxed smile, I knew I would do it again. Hey, Sukuna-kun. Yeah. Can I continue to live with you?" Himiko whispered, a tinge of nervousness in her voice, as she slid closer to me until our shoulders were pressed together. "Of course. You can stay as long as you want. Plus 100 SP. Okay, then I'll stay with you forever then." At her response, I found myself chuckling. She seemed offended by my laugh, but she quickly joined me. For the first time since my parents died, I felt a part of my heart and soul regain itself. Nestled atop Mount Mitsumine in the Chikaibu Tomokai National Park was the Mitsumine Shrine. It stands as a testament to ancient Japanese spirituality and craftsmanship. This mountaintop sanctuary, often described as one of Japan's most beautiful mountain shrines, offers visitors or tourists a unique blend of natural beauty, historical significance, and spiritual energy. With its rare wolf worship and intricate architectural details, Mitsumine Shrine provides a captivating experience for those willing to venture off the beaten path. Or so this pamphlet in my hand says. While all this was fine and dandy, I wasn't here for all that touristy crap. No, I was here because I heard that this shrine is said to bring good luck to all who visit it. And who needs a boost to their luck stat more than anyone? Well, that's me. The guy RNGesus and the Gacha gods seem to have an issue with. "We're all set up, boss," Clone A said as he motioned to the table full of offerings and the burning essence sticks. "Phase 1 is done." "Excellent," I said and raised a walkie-talkie. "Team B, how's it going on your end?" "Over." Team B reporting in. "All the wolf statues have been prayed to, and we left plenty of offerings behind. Phase 2 is complete." "Over." Clone C said from the other end. I nodded and looked over to the majestic shrine. This location would typically be ripe with locals and foreign visitors, but it was empty due to the dark sky above me. It was around 3 in the morning, meaning there wasn't anyone around to disturb my ritual. "Where's Hikari?" I called out as I scanned my surroundings. After a few seconds of looking around, I finally found the crow. He was cuddling up next to Crow Kirara. "Get over here." "TCH. Yeah. Crow Hikari muttered and flew to stand on my shoulder. "Why do you need me anyway?" "Well, if you're anything like your counterpart, you'll be bursting with good luck for me to sponge off," I said while holding up some corn for him to eat, which he did. After all, tonight we gamble away my hard-earned saved-up points. "Ah, I see. Let's gamble it all away then," Crow Hikari said as he began to dance a little crow dance while rave music started to play in the background. Looking back, I saw 2 of my clones dancing while a large portable speaker sat on the ground. "All right, knock it off," I yelled, causing one of the clones to turn off the music. "Buzzkill. Who invited him?" "Gare," Zyko muttered from his spot on a lawn chair. I ignored their comments and brought out the prayer beads from my black and white kimono. With a snap of my fingers, the Gacha machine materialized to life. I then dismissed my clones and took a deep breath. Total SP, 9,949. I was somehow lucky to have pulled the Limitless a week ago. Now all I need to do is get the 6 eyes. Hopefully, all my preparations will come in clutch. I muttered and mulled over what to do. Let's see. While I could go all in and do 2 platinum pulls, I could waste almost all my points if they fail like those other 6 tries I did over the year. No, I need to play this smart. Start small and do 1 platinum pull at the end. With my mind made up, I reached over to the machine and used enough points for 2 silver tier pulls. Most of the rewards were more junk or clothes, leaving only 2 worthwhile rewards. You have pulled Gaku Gunji Yoshinobu's guitar. Rank, silver. You have pulled Miwa Kasumi's new shadow style techniques. Rank, silver. Not bad. Okay, next. Moving up, I used enough points to do 2 gold tier pulls. Sadly, the majority of the pulls were some repeat skills, items, or techniques I already had. Fortunately, my last pull ended up being a decent reward. You have pulled Yoshino Junpei's Shikigami, Moon Dregs. Rank, gold. Another Shikigami, I said as Crow Hikari and I watched a swirl of CE appear in the air before us. Quickly, the CE formed itself into a large, glowing jellyfish-like creature with several tendrils flowing about. Its large black eyes looked around before settling on me with an unfocused look. "Hey there," I said without much care. My hands pressed together to unleash a piercing blood attack. "I'm just going to ask you this once. Are you loyal to me?" Fortunately for the jellyfish, it nodded and flew to stand behind me. "Good. You will be known as Jello from now on," I said, causing Jello to tilt its head in confusion before nodding. I then commanded Jello to go chill next to Zyko. Jello followed my order and glided over to my wormy companion. The two of them turned to one another before nodding in acknowledgement. Maybe all of the Shikigami I pull will be naturally loyal to me? Then again, Rika is a different case. She's incredibly loyal to Yuta, so who knows if she'll be like Zyko or Jello? I said, turning back to the gacha machine. Well, I'll leave future me to deal with that. Now then, let's keep going. I twisted the machine's dial after using 1500 SP for a diamond tier pull. As I waited for my reward, I grew more anxious now that I was at the more expensive tiers. I rubbed my prayer beads between my palms and prayed to any god who would listen. "Come on, Gidge. Give me something good." You have pulled Fushiguro Toji's The Chain of 1,000 Miles. Rank, Diamond. I mean, this is fine. It's fine. One more time. I turned the dial after spending another 1500 SP. I waited anxiously, my hands blurring as they rubbed the prayer beads, causing smoke to billow out from the friction. Come on, come on, come on. Hikari. Dance. Boost my luck. You got it. Crow Hikari cawed and began to dance back and forth while Crow Kirara turned the music back on. You have pulled Zenin Naobito's Cursed Technique. Projection Sorcery. Rank, Diamond. Yes. Great pull. I pumped my fist and felt the knowledge of the technique fill my brain. Crow Kirara turned off the music and waited for her cue. I was going to blow my brains out if I got another repeat technique. Can you do that while I'm not around? Crow Hikari said as he flapped his wings. I ignored my crow and turned to my remaining points. I had 3,549 SP left. It's just barely enough for a platinum pull. I took a deep breath to calm my jittery nerves and reached for the gacha machine. Use 3,500 SP. Twisting the dial, my crows and I waited with bated breath as the machine vibrated and glowed. Due to the success with my last platinum pull that resulted in me gaining the limitless, I was worried all my good luck for the month was gone. Clink. Yo, boss, you got something. I did? I thought my mind was just coping. I reached out to the glowing prize ball and tenderly held it in my palm. I swallowed the lump in my throat as my mind whirled at what could be within the small plastic ball. Come on, give me something good. You have pulled Ryaman Sukuna's domain expansion. Malevolent Shrine. Rank, Platinum. Holy shit. I yelled, my eyes wide as saucers. Finally, a domain expansion. And not just any domain expansion. The domain expansion. Even though I was thrilled to have won one of JJK's best domains, I felt my mind hit a roadblock. I see. This is like the limitless. I said with a thoughtful expression. To use Malevolent Shrine, I must already have Sukuna's Shrine technique. Without that, I can't use the domain. It's safe to assume that any other domain expansion I pull will need its original technique in order for it to work. TCH. I should have gotten Chimera Shadow Garden or Coffin of the Iron Mountain. Then, I flopped onto the ground and looked at the night sky with a disappointed but happy smile. Regardless, I got some great rewards today, I said, placing my hands behind my head. I wonder how the girls are doing. General P, 3 girls, Keiko, Mai, and Himiko, sat on the carpeted floor, surrounded by colorful blankets and pillows in Keiko's bedroom. The soft sounds of conversation and the playing movie on the blue-haired girl's laptop filled the air. Keiko, dressed in her pajamas, excitedly pulled out a deck of cards out of her closet. Himiko, wearing an oversized shirt she had borrowed from Sauta's closet, continued to style Mai's hair. Meanwhile, Mai, who was dressed in a loose shirt and shorts, nestled deep into the pile of cushions she had created for herself while Himiko worked on her hair. In Mai's hands was the latest issue of Inventors Weekly. It was all she was able to grab before her mother all but snatched her from her room before driving her to Keiko's house for a normal girls' sleepover. "How about a game of girls?" Keiko asked as she crawled over to Mai's pile of cushions. "That depends. How much are we playing for?" Mai asked as she flipped a page in her magazine. "You and Su-chan play for money a lot, don't you?" she quipped, her tone light and playful. "Yup." Mai smiled as she looked up from her magazine. "But he usually ropes my papa in, too." That sounds like him." Keiko sighed, turning to look over at Himiko, who was humming. She continued to work on Mai's hair. "Hey, Himiko-chan. I know how Mai-chan met Su-chan, but I never asked how you two met." Himiko glanced up from Mai's hair, a small, warm smile on her face. "I ran into him one night while I was out for a walk. I hadn't eaten all day, and he offered me a meat bun." As she talked, Mai's mouth fell into a small frown, confusing her before she shrugged the feeling away. "We started talking and discovered that we had a lot in common." Keiko smiled knowingly as she looked at both Himiko and Mai. "I see. What a wonderful story. It seems like Su-chan grew to be a lot more generous with age. Back at the orphanage, he wouldn't even think about sharing his stuff with anyone. Well, other than me, at least. That reminds me." Mai said as Himiko stepped away, her work done. Her hair was now styled into twin tails. "You and Sauta grew up together, right? How was he like?" Keiko blinked as both Himiko and Mai looked at her with curious expressions. Keiko took a moment to collect her thoughts, her gaze drifting off to a corner of the room, where a small framed picture of her and Sauta back from when they lived in the orphanage hung on the wall. "Well, Su-chan was always a bit of a mystery to me when we were younger. All he did was read or draw." Keiko started with a nostalgic smile on her face. "He was the kind of person who would ignore everyone around him, no matter who it was. Even though he didn't seem to care much about anyone, he always kept an eye out for me for some reason." Keiko said as she brushed her left shoulder unconsciously, catching Himiko's eye. "I guess it was because I was quite a handful, more than any other kid. There was one summer when I tried to build a treehouse for everyone. I nearly got some kids and myself stuck in that tree behind the orphanage for hours. But then he showed up and helped us all down." Himiko and Mai smiled softly as they listened to Keiko. "From that point on, he always nagged me to be careful in whatever I did. Su-chan would even share his snacks with me sometimes and tell me some of his made-up stories. He also helped me with my homework when I couldn't figure it out." Keiko paused, a hint of laughter in her eyes. "But he could also be a little odd and overprotective, too. Once, a kid from our elementary school tried to bully me because I didn't have any parents, but then Su-chan showed up and began beating up the boy. He did end up getting in trouble, but he didn't care. It was hilarious and kinda scary at the same time." Looking back at Himiko and Mai, Keiko's happy expression melted into one of sadness. "But a few years back, I was lucky enough to finally be adopted. I was so happy when they told me I would go home with a new family, only to quickly cry when I realized I'd be leaving Su-chan behind." Keiko said as she quickly rubbed her eyes. He said, "Don't worry about me, damn it. Go on and be happy. I'll be just fine." He always had that bad habit of saying bad words. After I left, we'd talk on the phone every now and then, but it wasn't the same. I missed my big brother a lot. Keiko-chan. Himiko whispered and crawled over to the now softly crying girl to give her a hug. Mai looked uncomfortable, but she quickly ended up copying Himiko, not too sure what else to do. The three hugged one another as a warm, comfortable silence hung in the room. "Just so you know," Keiko whispered from between her two new but still precious friends, "if either of you do something to him, you'll regret it. Hey. Thank you for your continued support. Oh, of course. Thank you for all your work, Gij-sensei. +5 SP. I waved goodbye to the incredibly excited young man who was cosplaying Michelangelo as one of the event staff escorted him toward the exit. I adjusted the cardboard Mechimaru helmet over my head and greeted the next person in line. I'm a huge fan of yours, Gij-sensei. The young girl with the features of a praying mantis said as she held out volume 1 of my TMNT series. See, could you please sign this? Absolutely. What's your name, kid? I said as I grabbed the book from her. +5 SP, it's Ike Makoto. Well, Ike. Thank you for enjoying and supporting my work. I said, my voice laced with appreciation. I can't wait for you to see the upcoming movie. We all poured our hearts into it. I will. I absolutely will. I waved goodbye as Makoto was guided off. Looking over to the left, I saw an extremely long line of excited fans waiting patiently to be next. A large majority of them were cosplaying characters from both of my TMNT and DBZ series. There were even some individuals cosplaying characters from my other book series. If the survival outfits, wizards' capes, and various space costumes were anything to go by. Why was I currently at a significant signing event held within an expensive venue dedicated to just this event? According to my editor, Asuka, my first public appearance was all to promote and generate hype for the upcoming TMNT movie. By extension, all the hype around the movie would also boost its manga sales. Seeing as how my series had passed 55 million units sold last month, the campaign is doing exactly that. The movie was set to take place after the TV anime series ended in a couple of weeks. While I wasn't that interested in continuing the story after I finished it in my manga, my editor and NAPPA's president made some excellent points about why I should do it. The movie was intended to be a send-off to the Ninja Brothers and a love letter to the fans. At that point, I agreed to do the movie and wrote the story. And thus, here I was, signing book after book as I met hundreds of my fans. A large movie poster hung behind me while my editor and staff sold books and merchandise off to the side. Although I would have preferred to be training or messing around with my friends, the steady number of points I received from each interaction made this event worthwhile. The extra money from the event was also nice. Gij-sensei, the next person in line, said as he stepped in front of the table I sat on. I'm a big fan of all your works. Could you give me the honor of signing my book? I turned to him and saw that he looked somewhat familiar. He had a reptile-like appearance, with bright green scales for skin and a face shaped like that of a lizard. His hair was a desaturated pinkish purple in color, and it was relatively long and swept backward. He was dressed in a black hoodie with his hood over his head, and a red ninja mask covered his eyes. Oh shit, it's your boy, Spinner. Sure thing, I said and accepted the very last volume for TMNT. What's your name? +10 SP. It's Iguchi Shuichi, Shuichi said as he rubbed the side of his head with an embarrassed blush. I just want to say that your series means a lot to me. When I bought the Weekly Jump, I couldn't help but be super immersed in the story. It was as if I was right there. I felt seen. I see. I'm happy to hear that, Iguchi. I signed his book and added a quick drawing of the four brothers, much to his delight. I'm glad you connected with my story like that. I wanted to show the world that heteromorphs could also be amazing heroes. I believe that anyone, no matter what they look like, could be heroic and a role model. +20 SP. Shuichi's eyes grew wide as I returned his book to him with a nod of my cardboard head. Ah, you like us too? Shuichi asked with a hopeful tone. Is that why you're hiding your appearance? Let's see what to say. I could lie and rack in the points, or I could be honest. What to do? Would it make you feel better if I was or not? I asked as I leaned on the table. Shuichi looked momentarily taken aback. I'm not blind to what you're getting at, Iguchi, but I think you need to remember what I was trying to convey in my story. Remember, it doesn't matter what others may say or do to you. What matters is +50 SP, doing what's right. Shuichi finished one of the quotes Leonardo said often in my book. A slight look of acceptance on his face. Yes. You're right, Gigi-sensei. I'm sorry for being too forward. It's okay, Iguchi. Really. I said and held out my fist for a classic fist bump, surprising Shuichi. Go on, don't leave me hanging. Alright. +70 SP. Shuichi smiled widely and bumped my fist. He was then guided away by one of the event staff, a large smile on his face as he held his book tightly. I waved goodbye at him and then turned to the next person in line. Unfortunately, everyone else wanted a fist bump as well after seeing me give one to Shuichi. Ah, shit. General Pu. The cold night air cut through the alley as Bubaigawara Jin, or Twice, stumbled forward, pain radiating from his leg where the long metal shard had bitten into him. Jin was dressed in a black and grey bodysuit that covered his body completely, along with grey boots. The upper half of his signature mask was grey with white eye sockets, while the lower half covering his mouth was black. Jin also sported red and green wristbands where he stored his measuring tapes. Each step sent fresh waves of agony shooting through his body, but he couldn't afford to stop. Behind him, several pairs of footsteps echoed a relentless pursuit that drove him to push past his limits. Get the hell back here, you masked bastard. You're not getting away, not ever. Says you. They're gonna catch us. Jin yelled against his best judgment. Tonight's job was not supposed to end like this. Jin thought as he ran. When Jin heard that the famous group, the Vanishing Blades, was searching for a new member, he eagerly seized the opportunity to join them. Becoming part of this successful criminal organization, known for its impressive success rate, would provide him with a steady stream of income from their operations. And for a couple of months, it was working out exactly like he hoped. Their crimes, or heists, were successful, and their profits were considerable. With more money in his pockets, Jin could now improve his apartment. He was now able to buy a fancy new TV and games for himself and his dear friend, Sauter, to play whenever the two hung out at his home. With more money, Jin was capable of going out to have fun with his friend and to be the one who buys them food. After all, what good was money if not used to have fun with one's friends? After all, Jin valued his friends over everything. Jin would do anything to avoid being alone anymore. This was why he pushed himself to do more dangerous jobs with a large payout with the Vanishing Blades group despite what he normally would do, which were more straightforward and small-time jobs. But why exactly was Jin running away? The reason was that the Vanishing Blades' newest hit ended in disaster. They were under the impression that tonight's job was a simple heist. However, when they arrived at the location, they quickly found out they were set up by one of their members. After fighting for his life with everything he had, Jin was able to somehow escape, leaving the rest of his criminal group for dead. A fact that Jin didn't mind due to them treating him like a freak. They didn't care for him at all. It was just his skills they were interested in. It hurt him at first, but Jin quickly got over it. In the end, he already had a real friend. And that was enough for him. Where'd he go? Find him. Despite escaping the trap, 3 powerful quirk users were now chasing after him. Jin glanced back, his heart pounding as he saw his pursuers quickly gaining on him. Panic surged through him, forcing him to sprint, even as he felt his blood seeping through the makeshift bandage on his thigh while hot, burning pain pulsed from his sliced-up arm and the open wound on his back. Jin's mind raced. He had to find a way out, a place to hide. Maybe we can dig a hole and hide inside? No way, let's find a box and ship ourselves off to Canada. Twice muttered as he looked around wildly. He darted around a corner, each movement a battle against the pain threatening to overtake him. The walls of the narrow alley closed in, but he knew he had to keep moving. There was no choice. The darkness behind him was far more dangerous than the darkness ahead. With a desperate edge, Twice spotted an open door to a nearby building. If only he could reach it in time. He pushed himself harder, the adrenaline flooding his system, drowning out the agony from his cuts. Shadows swirled as he plunged into the doorway, praying it would be enough to keep his pursuers at bay. Landing on a telephone pole a few feet away was a black crow. Seeing an injured Jin enter a building with a large number of persuaders after him, it quickly released a loud caw, alerting its fellow brethren. Shimizu Sautapu. The warm glow of the restaurant enveloped me and Asuka as we settled into a cozy corner table, a flickering candle casting dancing shadows on our faces. The clatter of cutlery and the soft hum of conversation created a comforting backdrop as we perused the menu. I think I'm going to go with the yakitori, Asuka said, looking up with a smile. Her eyes sparkled in the candlelight. It sounds incredible. I nodded as I leaned back in my comfortable chair. My wrist and back are sore from the hundreds of signatures and pictures I've taken. That does look good. Let's see, What's the most expensive thing they got here? Plus 5 SP, oi, you're not doing this to me again. Asuka pointed at me with an annoyed expression. I know I said I would pay, but please be considerate of my wallet. I'll take that under advisement. After the waitress arrived, we went ahead and placed our orders. The two of us talked about today's events and the profit numbers from today's sales and tickets. From there, we moved on to talk about the upcoming movie. When our food arrived, the aroma filled the air, enhancing our hunger. Wow, this looks amazing! Asuka exclaimed, her mouth watering at the sight of her yakitori. I nodded as I watched our server place my order of gyudon in front of me. I felt my stomach growl eagerly as the two of us gave thanks before digging in. Just as I was about to place some food in my mouth, I saw one of my crows fly down in front of the restaurant's glass windows. It was Crow Miwa. B-boss. Twice is in danger. Crow Miwa said in a panic, her wings spread out, catching curious looks from the pedestrians walking on the streets. Hurry! He's in terrible shape. Sorry, Asuka. I have to go. Plus 5 SP. Without wasting any time, I stood up and threw down some money on the table. Before she could utter a word, I ran out of the restaurant in a flash, shoving and pushing those aside as I did. Damn, kid, watch it. Hey. The youth these days. No respect. Plus 5 SP, plus 5 SP, plus 5 SP, running outside. I dashed around the corner into a cramped alleyway and jumped along its walls to reach the rooftops. Once out in the open air, I summoned New and hopped onto its back. As I landed on my Shikigami's back, Crow Miwa landed on my shoulder and told me where Jin was located, while Jello, in his miniature form, materialized behind me. Let's go, New. General POV, stop moving, you bastard. Nah. Jin jumped back with a wince as he narrowly avoided the long blade arm of the man in front of him. The man had short grey hair and solid black eyes, and long, jagged blades made up his arms. Growling, the man tried to dislodge his arm from the steel pillar he ended up stabbing his blade arm into. Blast this crazy bastard, Tagawa. The man with blades for arms yelled, looking up at a figure standing on several stacked containers within the warehouse. Ah, already on it. Dashing behind a wooden box, Jin watched the box explode as a speeding ball of green energy crashed into it. Running away, Jin looked up to see a woman with short dark green hair place what appeared to be a bubblegum ball in her mouth. After chewing on it, she turned her head towards him and spat out another speeding ball of green energy. That's gross. Kinda cool, though, Jin said as he rolled back to avoid the speeding blast that smashed into the floor. Damn it. I'm gonna get caught. I need to make another me. I have to. Jin thought as he hesitantly raised his arm to activate his quirk. No. I can't. Got you. A very large man exploded out of the brick wall Jin was running alongside. Jin grunted in pain as he was grabbed by his shoulders by the man's large hands. Jin squirmed as he tried to escape the large man's grasp, but the 4-meter-tall mutant who had him in his grasp grinned at his weak attempts. The Titan had red, plated skin with sharp white teeth. His muscles were capable of giving Endeavor a run for his money, as the only article of clothing he wore was a pair of old jeans. You wouldn't mind letting me down, would you? No. Reaching his arms back, the Red Titan threw Jin across the warehouse. His speeding body crashed through several wooden crates until he rolled to a stop. Jin gasped in pain as his body rolled to a stop. Pushing past the pain, he tried to push himself up, but all he felt was agony throughout his limbs. Looking down, Jin saw his blood begin to pool under him, sending a wave of fear through him. No. No. If I'm not the original, I'm going to disappear. I have to get away. Jin thought as he looked around the warehouse for an escape route. But due to his tired and injured state, all he could do was turn his head to stare out at the large skylight on the ceiling. Come on, body. Move. You're losing your touch, Shigeo, Tagawa said as she landed a few feet away from Jin, causing him to jerk toward her. Damn you. Just you wait, you crazy bastard. I'll rip you in two. The man with blades for arms, Shigeo, growled as he walked toward Jin's position with an enraged expression. I prefer you don't. I quite like being whole. Jin said as he tried to get up, but only ended up grunting in pain. Shut it, you crazy freak. Easy now, Shujio. The Red Titan, Ryo, said as he stomped over to stand next to Tagawa, who was chewing some gum. We still need to ask this guy where the vanishing blades hide their loot. Damn the loot, Shujio growled as he stopped over Jin's head, his blade arm pulled back. I'll take this guy's head to the boss instead. Shit. What do I do? Jin yelled in his head as Shujio looked down at him with a wide, bloodthirsty smile. His arm was swinging down at him, ready to slice his head off. I don't want to die. Not when things were finally going right for me. Shujio, stop. Ryo and Tagawa yelled as they rushed to stop their angry companion from botching their assignment. Crash. Everyone froze as the large skylight above broke into hundreds of shards of glass as a hooded figure descended towards them. Turning to them, Sukyuna slapped his hands together and spoke. Piercing blood. Shimizu Saotapu. I watched my attack pierce straight through the right shoulder of the man with blades for arms. The man yelled in pain as he staggered away from Jin to grab the large bleeding hole in his shoulder after turning his blade arm back to normal. Landing on the ground, I quickly scanned the other two occupants in the room and then turned to Jin. My friend was lying on a stack of broken wooden crates covered in his own blood while several cuts adorned his body. You three just signed your own death warrants, I said, standing to my full height, CE flowing around my arms. Plus 5 SP, plus 5 SP, plus 5 SP, plus 10 SP. Who the hell is this guy? The green-haired woman yelled as she spat a ball of green energy at me. I tilted my head to the side as the nasty energy ball flew past me. Seeing her attack miss, the woman quickly threw another bubblegum into her mouth. So that's how it works. Taking a step forward, I dashed straight at the green-haired woman with CE-enhanced speed. The woman and the large red man were briefly surprised at my burst of speed but quickly recovered. The red-skinned titan growled and swung his massive arm to crush me. Projection sorcery. This technique divides 1 second into 24 frames of animation using the user's field of view as the projection angle of view. The user can trace a predetermined set of movements into those 24 frames and execute them in that single second. Moving using this technique makes the user appear to move unnaturally fast, making them seem as if they are glitching around on the surface. Bam! Ha! You weren't so tough. The large red man laughed as his right fist crushed the ground in front of him, sending smoke and dust around him. That's what you get 4-ratio. Wham! Plus 10 SP. I slammed my CE-covered fist into the large man's back, launching him forward with a crack. The man slammed straight into a steel beam, bending and snapping the beam around it. With no support, several large crates ended up falling onto the man. Ryo, you bastard. To her credit, the green-haired woman quickly recovered from the shock of seeing the red titan fly. She was about to spit another ball of energy at me when I suddenly appeared in front of her with projection sorcery. I slammed my hand over her fast-expanding mouth, causing her eyes to grow wide in terror. Bang! I muttered as her head exploded in a shower of gore and green energy. Thanks to my CE reinforcement, my hand was left with only a few scratches. Plus 30 SP. I watched her body tumble to the ground and looked over to the man I attacked with piercing blood. Hey, you. Dodge. Mr. Blade's forearms was clutching his bleeding shoulder with a scowl. Why you? You bastard. I'll tear you to shreds. Using projection sorcery, I appeared right in front of him and punched the side of his head with incredible force. Due to the power of my CE-enhanced punch, the man's head did a full 360 spin, causing several disgusting cracks to pop out of his neck. Lifeless, the man collapsed forward onto the ground. Plus 30 SP. I told you to dodge, I muttered and turned to Jin. Seeing that my attention was now on him, Jin tried to raise his hands in surrender but only managed to twitch his arms. Hold the phone. I'm not with them. Jin pleaded. Yeah. We're part of a completely different criminal group. Even when you're bleeding out, you're still the same as ever. I threw off my hood and deactivated my tattoos with a grin. You need a hand, bud. Plus 50 SP, Sauter. Jin yelled in shock, his eyes wide. Why are you here? Man, I'm happy to see you. I'll explain later. I crouched next to him and placed a hand on his chest. Now then, switch. Due to my body's current 4-technique limitation, I'm only capable of safely switching one of the 4 techniques I have equipped for another after a 2-hour cooldown. However, to bypass that wait time, I made a binding vow with myself that would allow me to switch any one of my 4 equipped techniques in an instant by saying the word switch. But in doing so, I would be down a slot for 24 hours. This could be done a total of 3 times. Painkiller, I said as I switched blood manipulation for it and activated the technique, instantly stopping all of Jin's wounds from getting worse and numbing his pain. There, that should keep you together until I finish up with that red guy. Plus 30 SP. Wow, I feel better. Hold on, red guy? Didn't you send him to go meet his mommy? Jin asked as he slowly sat up. Crack. Nah, I only knocked him down for a little bit, I said, turning my tattoos back on as we turned to look at a very angry Titan stomp toward us. Rio, I think his name was, turned to look at his dead companions, and his face contorted in what could be called unyielding rage. I'm going to smear you both all over these walls. Ooh, scary. Plus 10 SP. As I took a step forward, Jin grabbed my pants, stopping me. I turned to him in confusion and saw the worried look on his face. I'm not sure what's going on or how you're capable of doing all this, Sauter. But we need to run. This guy is too strong. I saw him rip one of my old crewmates into pieces. Pieces, I tell you. Relax, Jin, I said, patting his hand. I won't lose. I'm pretty strong myself. Plus 40 SP. Stepping away from my friend, I cracked my neck and approached Rio, who was now breathing deeply in anger. I stopped a few feet away from him and beckoned him on. Come on then, big guy. Show me what you dash blam. I moved to the side as his very large fist crashed into the floor where I once stood. Moving to his side, I landed rapid, fast punches to his ribs. Rio shrugged them off and swung his entire left arm at me. Dashing back slightly to avoid his blow, I leaped up and landed 2 snap kicks onto his face. Rio grunted in pain, but he quickly reached out to grab me mid-air. But before he could lay his hands on me, 2 invisible attacks knocked his head back. Divergent fist. Or kicks in this case. I landed on the ground and watched Rio blink in confusion. A rather easy trick to avoid. Well, that is if you're a sorcerer. Plus 10 SP, you damn brat. Rio roared, his red-plated muscles expanding to absurd levels. I'll kill you. Give it your best shot. Rio roared and began to chase me through the warehouse. His large body crashed through anything that stood in his way. As we moved, he tried to land dozens of punches, but his enraged muscle state had the adverse effect of slowing down his already slow speed. Despite that, I could acknowledge that his punches were extremely strong if all the craters he was making in his failed attacks were anything to go by. Let's see, I have the 10 shadows, painkiller, and ratio equipped. I backflipped away from Rio's wild haymaker and grinned. Focusing all my energy on this fight, the sudden feeling of entering a flow state enveloped me. No, let's keep this simple and use straight hands. I stopped dodging Rio's attacks and stepped to the side, avoiding his latest punch. Seeing that I had finally stopped avoiding him, Rio grinned and moved in. But at the sight of my excited smile, he hesitated. Too late. I stepped into striking range and swung. Black flash. Plus 20 SP. Gar. Rio yelled in pain as my fist sank into his tough muscles. Sparks of red and black sparked around us as the space around my strike distorted. Feeling my mind enter the zone, I grinned in excitement and jumped up. Black flash. Plus 30 SP. The red-skinned Titan's head snapped up as my roundhouse kick crashed into his jaw. Spinning in midair, I spun around and landed an uppercut into his solar plexus. Black flash. Plus 40 SP. Rio's eyes went white in pain as he stumbled back, his body swaying back and forth from the intense pain. Blurring in front of him, I felt my body be coated in an aura of CE before it concentrated over my right fist. I held my fist in my left hand by my side and struck with ratio. Black flash. Plus 80 SP. Arcs of red and black shot out all around us as Ryo's large body was sent flying back until it crashed through the warehouse's north wall. He landed in a heap outside, with a large bleeding wound over his stomach. Walking out of the hole his body made in the wall, I looked down at his chest and saw no movement. 4 black flashes. Not bad. I hoped you were more durable than that, I muttered and walked back inside of the warehouse. How disappointing. As I walked, Jin was watching me with wide, unbelieving eyes. Plus 10 SP. Damn, bro. That was awesome. Jin yelled as he tried to stand, only to lose his balance. Before he could fall on his face, I moved under his right arm and caught him. Easy there, I said, guiding him outside. You may not feel it, but you're still cut up. I'd use round deer on you, but its RCT only seems to work on me. Round deer? RCT? What's that? Is it Christmas already? Jin said as he held his side, wincing in pain. Don't worry, Jin. Let's go get you patched up. I said as I summoned New. Now then, hop on. Hop on. Jin asked in confusion before I handed him a pair of Moki's glasses to put on. What are you out there? Is that a giant bird? So neat. What's up with its face? All my stuff. Gone. Hey, at least we don't have to clean the apartment this week. I held my chin in thought as Jin and I glided through the air on New's back. Jello was gliding behind me lazily while Zyko rode on its head. The masked man was curled up into a depressed ball beside me. It seems that the crewmate that betrayed you and your old group must have gotten all your home locations. They must have ransacked it before setting it on fire. That damn snake. I'ma kill him. Jin roared as he shook his fist in the air, causing him to wince in pain. Easy there, bro. Let's get you all healed up first, I said, patting his shoulder. I looked ahead and saw the large black curtain over my home in the distance. Jin followed my gaze and freaked out. Crap. We're gonna crash. It's so spherical. Spherical. Relax. We'll be fine, I said as we effortlessly flew through the curtain. Jin patted himself after we passed by my barrier as if to check if he was all there. He then looked around at the large forest surrounding my home. Neat place. Wonder who it belongs to. It's mine. Seriously. Seriously. Plus 10 SP. New landed in the courtyard and lowered itself so Jin wouldn't agitate his injuries any further. I helped him get to the ground before dismissing my Shikigami. Goodbye, you majestic bird. Jin gave New a salute as it melted into my shadows. May we meet again in the field of glorious battle. I slid under his arm and helped him move towards the main house, but before we made it too far, the shoji door leading to the living room slid open to reveal Himiko. Sukuna-kun. You're back. She jumped out to the patio but stopped when she saw Jin. Who's this? She asked before blushing. He's all covered in blood. Sukuna? Wait. As in the demon god. I ignored Jin's incredulous masked expression and turned to Himiko. This is Bubaigawara Jin. He's a good friend of mine who will be staying with us. Jin turned to me in shock. Wait, really? Plus 30 SP. Of course. I can't have my best buddy living out in the streets when I have more than enough rooms at my place, I said, watching as his wide eyes trembled. You're more than welcome to stay as long as you want. Sauter. Plus 50 SP. Yay. New housemate. Himiko celebrated as she got under Jin's other arm, an excited smile on her face. I'm Toga Himiko. How'd you get all cut up? Oh. Do you mind if I taste some of your blood? I may not have enough to share. Absolutely. Go for it. I grinned as the two continued to talk to one another while I sat Jin down before patching him up. It was no wonder why the two got along so well in the original timeline. I could see that both Himiko and Jin were ecstatic to meet another person who didn't mind their individual quirks, which left them both to talk to one another with ease. There, I said as I applied the last bandage on Jin's back. The three of us were now in the dining room. All done. Now, let's go show you to your room so you can get some rest. Jin nodded as I guided him through my house. Himiko had stayed back in order to heat up some food for Jin. As we walked, I noticed that Jin was uncharacteristically silent. "Sauter," Jin said, not in his twice voice, but in his own. "Thank you. Truly. Plus 10 SP. Don't mention it. Besides, I still have to kick your ass in Street Fighter." Yeah, you're right. Plus 30 SP. Good morning, Shimizu-san. It's good to see you. 5 times 10 is equal to plus 50 SP. I blinked in confusion as a large group of my fellow students all bowed to me. I stared at them in confusion before looking over at the other students near the shoe lockers. Some smiled at me, while others quickly sped off with fear in their eyes. Some of the female students were even waving at me with rosy cheeks. The hell is going on? What happened while I was gone? Ah, yes. Morning. I muttered as I grabbed my indoor shoes. How are things going? There were some rival gang members bothering some of our fellow students yesterday after school, but we quickly got rid of them, boss. One of the gathered delinquent-looking students said after standing at attention. He had spiky orange hair and brown eyes. He also strongly resembled a certain substitute Shinigami. We then walked that student all the way home. That's right. We showed those losers. Damn them. Great work, I said while scratching my head. 5 times 10 is equal to plus 50 SP. My compliments seemed to throw them into a frenzy as they all yelled in happiness as if they just won the lottery. I then walked away from them to head to my homeroom. Some of them even bowed to me as I left. Senpai. A short girl with white hair and red eyes stopped in front of me shyly. 2 girls stood a few feet behind her with encouraging smiles. Please accept this. The girl held out a bag of cookies as she bowed her head. Okay. I accepted the bag of cookies, causing the white-haired weirdo to smile widely. She and her friends then all ran away, giggling while looking over at me with blushes on their cheeks. Plus 5 SP. Okay, Dita time. I changed directions and headed off to the rooftop of the school. As I speed-walked, I received smiles and small bows from my fellow students throughout all 3 years. I ignored the sheer insanity of my surroundings and walked out onto the roof. Okay. Explain, you bastards. My 4 clones all quickly rose from the ground. Their faces were etched into wide, proud grins as they brushed their hair back and posed. Ha! What do you think, boss man? Clone C said with his arms crossed. The school is now your oyster. No one will disrespect us ever again. That's right. We now rule this school. Clone B smiled in pride while placing a leg on a nearby bench, his right hand grasping the chain-link fence. Isn't it great? Big C sure turned this school around from the dump it used to be. I took a few months off from school, and you created a delinquent group, I said to Clone C as I held my face at the sheer absurdity of the situation. I didn't want all this attention. Why not? Everyone at this school either admires you or fears you now. Clone C looked at me like an ungrateful child. Besides, I thought you weren't coming back here, boss. So I decided to have some fun while you made me come here in your place. Talk about scut work. Hey, you pulled the short straw. Stop complaining. Clone D muttered as he leaned on the door leading inside. Besides, it's not all sunshine and rainbows drawing and writing all day. I literally heard you 3 say what a sucker I was. Clone C glared at his fellow clones, causing them to look away. Shit, I told you we were being too loud. That bastard has great hearing. We all do. This is my fault. I sighed and took a seat next to Clone B, who nodded. What else have you done, Clone C? Not much else. I turned down a few confessions, got into some fights with some fellow gangs, and set up a community garden for the delinquents here to work on. Small stuff like that. Clone C said as he pulled out a small notepad I know I didn't have. His eyes scanned the notepad. I think that's it. I'm going home. General POV. The spacious room was filled with the soft beeping of several medical machines. A figure lay motionless in the bed. The elderly man, his silver hair well-groomed, slept with a calm expression beneath his white blanket. Standing beside the comatose old man was a tall 26-year-old man. The young man had short brown hair and thin, golden eyes. Covering his face was an old-style red, magenta, and gold plague mask designed to filter bacteria from the air. He wore a dark green bomber jacket with a purple fur-lined hood. Underneath, he had on a black button-up shirt and matching pants, complemented by a light grey tie, a belt, and white lace-up shoes. On his hands, he wore white surgical gloves that helped manage the effects of his quirk and kept his hands clean. This man was Chisaki Kai, otherwise known as Overhaul. Kai stood motionless for several more minutes, simply gazing at the sleeping man with calm eyes. His right hand reached out to the man in front of him, but at the last second, Kai hesitated. Chisaki, haven't I told you no already? The child, really? How little do you think of people? Blinking away the memory, Kai brought back his hand. I'm sorry, Pops, but this is for the future of the Shai Hasaikai. Once I put the Yakuza back on top, I'll bring everything back like it was. Closing his eyes, Kai turned away from the man he respected deeply and walked out of the private room. Overhaul. Kai looked over to his right and saw a man with fair skin and thin, dark eyes. The man had pale chin-length hair that formed arrow shapes that resembled that of clock needles. He was dressed in a long white raincoat with its hood down. This man's name was Karuno Harry, Kai's right-hand man and a leading member of the 8 Bullets. Standing beside Harry with a nervous expression was a little girl with short, messy, and unkempt bluish, off-white hair. The little girl had wide, innocent-looking red eyes. Poking out from the right side of her forehead is a small, brown horn, while she wears a dirty, pale, short-sleeved dress. The girl's name was Eri. Chrono, Kai said as he looked at his direct assistant. His cold eyes then turned to stare at the little girl, causing her to whimper. Eri tried to move away but was kept in place by Harry. Are we moving forward with the plan? Harry asked. Kai's eyes remained on Eri before he looked over to Harry, giving him a nod. Yes. Prepare the surgical room. The research phase will now begin. A few months later, I observed Izuku, his body marked with bruises and blood, as he prepared for the next move. He transitioned into a poised combat stance, his right arm raised and left arm hanging loosely, his legs positioned for stability. I acknowledged his stance with a nod and mirrored it. We advanced towards each other on the grassy field surrounded by trees, our eyes locked until our right limbs were mere centimeters apart. Hell yeah, we finally did that raid scene. Without warning, Izuku lunged at me, his fist ablur as it hurtled towards my face. I dodged within a hair's breadth, countering with 2 swift jabs to his midsection. He grunted, his body twisting to deliver a spinning back kick towards my ribs. Not bad. I smirked and swiftly dropped to the ground, using the momentum to knock his supporting leg off balance. He refused to stay down, executing a kick-up to regain his footing. I closed the distance, and we engaged in a rapid exchange of blows. Plus 10 SP. For each punch or kick he tried to land on me, I parried and countered with my own strike. Izuku glared at me, frustration clear on his face at the fact that he had yet to land a single blow while his body was assaulted with punches, kicks, elbows, and knees from me. Feeling cheeky, I stepped back and patted my cheek tauntingly. I leaned forward with my hands behind my back, goading him to attack me. Izuku's left eye twitched as he decided to risk it. He stepped in and spun on his hips to try and hit me with a mean left hook. Unfortunately for him, I wasn't one to give away free hits. He had to earn them. Gah! Izuku grunted as I landed a vicious counter to his face with a left jab, knocking him away and onto his back. Plus 10 SP. Okay, that's enough for today, I said while walking over to give him a hand. He was covered in sweat from the hours of sparring we'd done that day. Good work, Izuku. Looking up at my hand, Izuku rubbed his nose and accepted my help. Without much effort, I lifted Izuku to his feet. Thanks, he said as his nose began to bleed slightly. Reaching into my back pocket, I gave him my handkerchief. He thanked me again and accepted it, using it to clean the blood from his nose. You're getting better. Your moves are much sharper than before, and you're letting your instincts guide you. Still, you need to incorporate more kicks into your combos. I said while performing 2 high snap kicks in the air. Remember, Izuku, you have legs, too. Plus 10 SP. I'm trying. It's just that you move too fast for me to launch any kicks at you. Izuku said as he began to roll his shoulders. But thinking back on our spar, I think I had a few opportunities where a kick would have worked better than a punch. Ah, you notice them now. I flicked his forehead and nodded. I purposely made those openings for you. Broccoli hair. Learn to take advantage of the smallest opening you can find. Oh, I'll be sure to do better next time, Izuku said with a sheepish smile. Atta boy. Plus 15 SP. I gave him a pat on the shoulder and led the both of us out of the secret training ground I found in the woods. Sauta-san, can I ask you a question? Izuku asked, his face nervous. Sure, what's up? Well, you're going to be graduating junior high soon. Hey-san and I were wondering which high school you would be going to. Izuku turned to me with a curious expression. Have you, maybe, I don't know, thought of trying to go to UA? Ah, so that's what those looks were. Over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed both Keiko and Izuku shooting me these odd, nervous looks. The looks that said they had something to say but weren't confident enough to say it. I normally would have pressed them on what they wanted, but it was pretty funny watching them struggle. Where's this coming from? I asked him without turning to him. I'm sure Keiko's told you what I think of heroes. She has. Izuku came to a stop, his eyes focused on the grass. I stopped in my movements as well and slid my hands in my pockets. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. But UA has other courses than the hero course. You can try to join the support department. Hatsume-san says your mechanical skills are second to none. I'm sure you'd. Nope. Not interested. Plus 10 SP. How about the general education course then? Izuku stepped closer to me, his expression resolute. It's well known that everyone who has graduated from UA's general education course has landed impressive jobs right out of high school. They also have the opportunity to get into any university they choose. There are numerous benefits to attending UA. He's right. There are benefits to joining UA. He just didn't mention anything that interested me. But what did interest me was the sheer SP potential at UA. Now that wasn't something I could risk passing up. Still, that didn't mean I was going to join the hero course. Of course not. No, I'd rather just join the general education course and breeze through all 3 school years under the radar while farming SP. Well, until Shigaraki and All for One decided to play. The only downside was that I'd have to waste a year there while I waited for Izuku and everyone else to join. I'd be bored out of my mind. Well, I suppose I could get Himiko to join with me. She has been working hard to make up for all her missed time and assignments from school, even if she was doing it all from home. So, it wasn't impossible for her to join alongside me once she fully caught up and graduated. After being cleared of any of her accused crimes, Himiko received a pardon and a formal apology from the police for her false accusations. UA shouldn't be able to hold her past against her and deny her entry. But would she even want to go? Questions for later. I raised an eyebrow at him and looked up at the blue sky beyond the thick tree branches above. Where's this coming from, Izuku? No, I was just UA is your and Keiko's dream school, Izuku. Not mine. I turned to him with a playful frown. Besides, I was thinking of dropping out of school after I graduated junior high. Plus 15 SP. What? Izuku said in surprise. But that would be such a waste. You're incredibly smart, and your hand-to-hand skills are on a completely different level. Not to mention your mechanical knowledge. Please, Sauta-san. Reconsider. Relax. I was just yanking your chain. I patted his hair and motioned for him to walk. Look, I won't promise you anything, but I'll give UA some thought. Maybe I'll go just so I can mess with my Keiko, and once you 3 join. It'll be a riot. You'll be calling me senpai and all that underclassmen stuff. Is that the only reason you would go? Do I need more? I said before breaking out into a run. Come on. We gotta hurry up and finish our 10-kilometer run before it gets dark. We don't want your mom to worry about you coming home late again. Right? Wait for me. UA. Himiko muttered while looking over to me from across the dinner table. You wanna go to UA? Seriously? Plus 10 SP. That doesn't sound like you. I knew it was too good to be true. He must be a sleeper agent. Jin said as he pointed at me with his chopsticks. Plus 10 SP. Yeah. I know how it sounds. I chewed on some of Himiko's curry with a thoughtful look. But it's not for the hero course. It's for general education. Even still, isn't that sorta dangerous for you, Sukuna-kun? Himiko turned to me with her brows arched. Sukuna is a wanted villain that every hero in Japan wants to catch after the news that you beat up Mako got out. You're like their golden snitch. Toga-chan has a point. Sauta. You'd literally be walking into the lion's den with this choice, Jin said sagely before shrugging. But what's life without a little thrill? Maybe you'll get yourself a girlfriend there. You are at that age, after all. Snap. Jin and I turned to Himiko. She was smiling widely with her eyes closed. The chopsticks in her hands were snapped in two, which was concerning, considering they were some of our nicer chopsticks, which were made out of stainless steel. Damn. Girl. Do it again. Oh, my. It seems we got some defective chopsticks, Himiko said as she stood up, that wide smile still on her face. I'll go throw these out and get a new pair. Jin and I looked at one another with a what the hell was that expression before shrugging. Still, Toga-chan is right. You're going to UA is risky. If they pick up that you and Sukuna are one and the same, then you'll have an entire school full of pro heroes on you, Jin said. What is it that you're trying to get out of that school that you can't get anywhere else? But loads of SP. I guess. It's because I'd want to be able to go to the same school with all of my friends, I said while rubbing the back of my head, my brain formulating a believable excuse. Because after Izuku, Keiko, and my graduate, I'm sure they'll be super busy to the point we all won't be able to see one another like we do now. I know I won't see them until a year after, but at least I'll get to be their annoying senior when they do. How's that? What am I saying? I wouldn't even buy what I said. Plus 10 SP. Plus 10 SP. I see. Well, I guess that's fine then. Jin shrugged and went back to eating. Good luck with the entrance exams. I guess if that's how it is, then it should be fine, Himiko said as she retook her seat, a new pair of chopsticks in hand. Don't worry. I'll be sure to get in with you. Oh. I'm getting all excited to go to school with you and everyone else. Never mind then. I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised at my housemates' reactions. Himiko and Jin were rather simple and straightforward. While they gave me some initial pushback due to the chance of getting caught, they didn't try to dissuade me from doing what I wanted. That pretty much fell in line with who they were and their beliefs. Thanks, you too. I ended up saying this without much thought. They both turned to me with a smile and a thumbs up in Jin's case. No worries. What are friends for? MHM. What Jin-kun said. Tap tap. The three of us turned to the window over the sink, where a black crow with red marks on the side of its head stood. Standing up, I walked over to the window and opened it. What's the matter, Yurorm? Sukuna-sama. Crow Yurorm bowed before hopping onto my forearm. I found the human you've been searching for. I recommend you move quickly. I believe the human intends to leave the country. Off behind me, Himiko and Jin both turned to me when they felt the air around them shift. They found it hard to breathe, and their heart rate sped up out of nowhere before that sensation instantly vanished. They blinked in confusion as they turned to one another, wondering if what they just felt actually happened or not. I see, I muttered as I relaxed myself. I then placed Crow Yurorm on my shoulder, much to his glee. We should go help him pack then. Sauta. Jin stood up and walked over to me as I was about to leave. Is everything all right? I said, remembering that no one else but me could hear what my crows were saying. Yeah, everything's fine. A job came up. I'm gonna have to cut dinner short. Allow me to accompany you then. Let's go kick some ass together. Jin. Please, Sauter. Jin placed a hand on my shoulder and removed his mask. I know you're very capable and strong, but I still want to help you. Even if you're the demon god of the underworld, I want to be there for you. It's the least I can do after everything you've done for me. There's nothing wrong with friends helping one another. Me too. Himiko jumped up and stepped closer to us, a determined look on her face. I want to help you too, Sukuna-kun. It's like Jin-kun said, friends help one another, right? Besides, I think it would be fun to work as a team. This isn't a game. Himiko. You too. Despite the sincerity of their words, I couldn't find it in me to accept. Maybe being so open with my abilities and secret identity wasn't the right move. What I do isn't exactly pretty. I'm a killer, and I make those I hunt suffer. There's a reason why the criminals and villains are scared of the name Sukuna. I don't want you two to look at me any differently once you realize what it is I exactly do. Himiko and Jin turned to one another before they smiled softly at me. Don't underestimate us, Sauter. Jin-kun's right. We're not going to see you any different than we do now. So please, trust us and let us help. Himiko walked up to me and held my right hand, her fingers caressing my old burn scars. Fine. But you two follow my instructions. No matter what. Got that? I said while taking my hand back, much to her annoyance. Still, she and Jin both nodded. Plus 10 SP. Plus 10 SP. Sir, yes, sir. Slipping his mask back on, Jin saluted me as if he were in the military. Himiko quickly copied him with a nod. Yeah, what he said. I gave them a grin but then looked them both up and down. Well, if we're going to be a team, you two are going to have to look like your Sukuna's allies. As I watched them both talk excitedly over some silly team names or costume ideas, I felt a cold pit form in my stomach. I looked away from them and took a deep breath. I just hoped I wouldn't regret this decision one day. General POV, hurry the hell up. Don't you dare forget those briefcases, you damn imbecile. Yes, so. Deep within a highly secured mansion on the outskirts of Kyoto was a group of people rushing within a large office. They were all dressed in suits while they moved with haste to collect, pack, organize, and secure several documents, expensive items, and stacks of money. Sitting in a chair with an annoyed expression was a large man dressed in an expensive black and blue three-piece suit. He had 4 pairs of eyes, all of which were a different color. His brushed-back black hair was sleek and shiny, while a well-kept mustache sat over his lip. He was tapping his fingers on the armrest of a ludicrously expensive gold and red padded chair. Kobashigawa-san. Stepping into the frantic room was a beautiful woman with neon violet hair. She was dressed in a skin-tight hero suit that accentuated all her natural curves. A short black cape hung from the woman's shoulder while her black high heels tapped along the shiny quartz flooring. Relax. Nothing will go wrong while I'm around. The woman, Shima, otherwise known as Imada Kiyomi, was known by the public as Japan's number 25 ranked pro hero. She was one of the country's rising stars with an impressive quirk called shimmering energy. Shimmering energy allowed Shima to use the energy around her as a weapon to use in any way she deemed fit. By bringing out the natural power within nearby technologies, vehicles, electrical cables, or even the sun above her, Shima could manifest that energy into powerful beams of pure energy to launch at her targets. However, despite her growing fame and powerful quirk, Shima was a hungry, insatiable, opportunistic person who would take whatever she thought would benefit her. Being a hero was just a means to an end for her. She didn't even care about the people she saved. They were all just a way for her to earn more money. So when she was offered 150 million yen to protect a paramount crime lord, she jumped at the opportunity, despite knowing all about his past and abhorrent actions. TCH, for your sake. You better be right, Shima. Especially at what you're costing me. Kobashigawa growled as he turned away from the woman to glare at a short, nervous woman standing patiently beside him. How long until we're ready to move? Jigga. We almost have everything packed, and your plane will be ready to depart as soon as we arrive at the runway, Kobashigawa-sama. The nervous woman, Kita Kobini, said while looking down at her tablet. It should only be another 10 minutes. Not good enough. Make it 5. Why yes, Kobashigawa-sama. Not bad, everyone either respects the hell out of you, or they're scared shitless, Shima said with a small sultry smile. You sure do live up to your reputation, Kobashigawa-san. Sora Kobashigawa, otherwise known as the Dealer of Sin, was one of Japan's 3 major crime bosses. He came up from nothing and made a name for himself by doing whatever it took to get to the top. Whether that meant murder, blackmail, arms smuggling, corruption, and human trafficking. All his actions allowed him to achieve the heights of power he now held. He was one of the world's richest men, and his influence spread far beyond his home country of Japan. He was untouchable by the government, police, and even the pro-heroes. His power and status are what allowed him to have such a prosperous and unimpeded career. All that allowed him to enter the Demon King's inner circle, further bolstering his infamy and strength. There wasn't anyone within the underworld that didn't know his name. There wasn't anyone who didn't fear his name. That is, all except that force of nature that has been systematically destroying everything he's built over his entire life over the course of 2 years. His most significant source of income, his human trafficking ring of children with impressive quirks, was destroyed. His dozens of safe houses that kept his vast wealth were all burned to the ground. Money and all. His large army of 2,000 strong quirk users were all slaughtered or crippled to the point he now only had around 200 men at his disposal. Not even his most trusted and loyal business partners wanted anything to do with him for fear of gaining the demon god's attention. That damn bastard, Sukuna, Kobashigawa growled, the armrest under him cracking under his grip. I'll have his head for what is done. I'll never stop coming after him until I get payback. Did you say Sukuna? As in the King of Curses, Sukuna? Shima said in shock, turning an angry look at Kobashigawa. You didn't say that's who was coming after you. Shut up. Kobashigawa yelled, shooting to his full height of 2.5 meters. His 4 eyes shrank into slits as he glared at the shaken hero. I've already paid you your wage, woman. Now you either do your job, or I'll skin you and your entire family line one by one. Is that clear? Crystal. With a huff, Kobashigawa walked away from his chair and began yelling at his staff to quicken their already fast pace. Shit. What did I get myself into? Shima mumbled and left the room to head to the mansion's electrical room. Once there, she grabbed a pair of thick electrical cables and begged to absorb the several thousand volts of electricity. As she did so, her violet eyes glowed with power. I'm sure all those rumors I heard of him were all blown out of proportion. I'll just kill Sukuna and be done with this dumb job. Shima said with a smile. Yeah, this'll be a walk in the park. General Pyoi, Himiko and twice sat on Sukuna's Shikigami, knew, as it flew over the city below them towards their destination. Looking up, Himiko watched as Sukuna flew above them using what appeared to be mechanical wings that resembled those of a dragonfly. Sukuna was dressed in a black hari with a white kimono and black undershirt that was connected to a black hood that hid his features. On his lower body, tied together with a black belt, were baggy martial arts pants and black martial arts shoes. Around his body and over his shoulder was Zaiko, Sukuna's ever-faithful weapon inventory, while Jello, another Shikigami of his, sat on his other shoulder in a much smaller form. Himiko herself was dressed in a black-blue uniform with a yellow hood that had cat ears on top. A white and yellow cat mask covered her face to hide her identity, while the mask's eye holes had the lenses of one of the cursed tool glasses. Strapped behind her was a blunt sword covered in white tappings and black dots, as 2 knife holsters were strapped around her thighs. Himiko was a little concerned at the sudden shift in her friend's personality once he was fully changed. He was now more silent and cold, or at least that's how he felt to her. Himiko was curious to know whether this was due to his current focus, or if this was how he normally was whenever he went out at night as the King of Curses. Trust Sauta, Sukuna, Toga-chan, Jin said as he turned to look at her. You may have been training with us for the past few months, but being out here is different. Yeah. It's scary. Jin was dressed in a heavily modified version of his old suit. Instead of it being a skin-tight latex suit, Jin's new costume was made of a thicker, more reinforced material that offered him greater defense and protection. The areas where his joints were still had the flexibility required for his acrobatics or hand-to-hand skills. Strapped to his back were twin katanas that Sauta implemented as an extra layer of offense, while Jin's wristband measuring tape tools sat over his wrists. I do trust him. That's never a question. Himiko said, her hands gripping New's feathers tightly. I guess. I'm just not used to this version of him. I see. I get that. But from what Sukuna has told me, this guy he's after is seriously bad news. He's been after this guy for 2 years, and tonight is his chance to end it. Bad news? What did this guy do? He's someone you don't ever want to come across. Ever. Jin said, his voice deadly serious. He's one of Japan's most powerful crime lords, and he's the reason so many children go missing. This guy is as close to evil as one can get. Himiko's eyes grew wide, the weight of what was going on finally settling upon her. Taking a deep breath, she schooled her anxiety and fear. I think I get it now. This is some super serious stuff. Himiko said, her eyes determined. Still, I'll do whatever it takes to help Sukuna-kun. I owe him everything. Good. Just remember to stick close to me. Jin said as he flexed. We're just back up today. Leave all the heavy lifting to Sukuna. He's pretty strong, you know? Himiko smiled with a nod, her soft gaze falling back over Sukuna as he flew with the moon above him. Yeah, I know. Despite not ever seeing what Sukuna could truly do, Himiko absolutely believed what she said. Shimizu Sauta POV. This is where the human is, Sukuna-sama. Good work, Uorm. I gave Crow Uorm a piece of fruit and dismissed her. Watching her fly away, I turned to Himiko and Jin as they jumped off New. They gave the Shikigami a few pats before it melted into shadows. They jogged over to me and came to a stop at my side. We peered down at the sizable Western-style mansion below the hill we were on with the trees on our backs. The mansion was nestled between several tall trees, hidden away by several large jutting boulders. That's it. Jin said as he examined the mansion below. I wonder how much a night here would cost. You think they got an Airbnb? Yeah, this is it. I turned to Himiko and Jin, my voice unintentionally low and cold, causing them to stand straight. You two stay away from Kobashigawa. He's mine. Your role is to hang back and take down his henchmen while I move in. At the first sign of things going south, I want you both to get out of here. Is that clear? You got it. Jin nodded while Himiko looked conflicted. Himiko. I took off my hood and stepped closer to her. My calm eyes gazed into her own reluctant ones. I know you're a skilled fighter. The amount you've learned in those few short months we trained is proof of that. But you're still not ready for what we could face down there. I'm sure Kobashigawa has hired some strong people to keep him safe from me. I just don't want you to get hurt. Either of you. Plus 10 SP. Plus 10 SP. Okay. Himiko crossed her arms and turned away with a pout. I'll be sure to get out of there at the first sign of trouble. I smiled and patted her head. As I walked away, I missed the light blush that burned on her cheeks. Stopping by the edge of the cliff we were on, I gazed down at the mansion and its surrounding terrain. Jin, who did pick up on Himiko's blush, lifted a small flag with SSX on it. He waved it around before tossing it over his shoulder to step beside me, as did Himiko. I reached into Zaiko and pulled out Playful Cloud while Jello floated behind me. Himiko pulled out Nanami's blunt sword while Jin whipped out one of his measuring tapes. Okay, let's begin. General POV, you good-for-nothings better not have left anything important. Or I swear to God I'll tear all your worthless heads off. Kobashigawa said as he settled into his armored limousine. Sitting in front of him with her legs crossed was Shima, while his assistant Kobini sat to his right. We have everything packed, Kobashigawa-sama. Kobini said quickly. Kobashigawa grunted and then motioned for his driver to begin moving. Just as Kobashigawa and his several other vehicles were about to depart, everything around them abruptly shook with incredible force. Maximum output. Glacial wall. Rising from the ground around the Western-styled mansion was a tall wall of solid, freezing ice. The wall of ice continued to grow until there was no escape for anyone within the mansion. Jumping out of his limousine, Kobashigawa looked up in shock. His eyes scrutinized the vast wall of pure ice that was impeding his escape. With a growl, the crime lord turned to the right to find the source of all his problems, standing on top of the ice wall. Sukuna. Kobashigawa glared at the King of Curses. Beside him were two other individuals staring down at them behind their masked visages. Jumping back into his limousine, Kobashigawa turned to his driver. "Go. Get us back inside." "Yes, sir." The driver behind the wheel slammed his foot on the gas. He then spun his head back to guide the limousine back into the mansion's garage. Shima was about to exit the vehicle to confront Sukuna, but Kobashigawa grabbed her arm and stopped her. "Not yet. Let my men tire him out," Kobashigawa said as all of his remaining men ran out to confront Sukuna and his two cohorts using whatever quirks or weapons they had available. "Once he's on his last legs, you'll end his pathetic life." Shima frowned but nodded nonetheless. Her eyes locked onto Sukuna's form. "All right. General POV, stay close to each other. Take out the stragglers," Sukuna said as he jumped down the wall of ice with little issue. Himiko and Jin nodded as they followed after him, albeit more slowly. As Himiko and Jin landed, they watched as Sukuna seemingly glitched out of existence before appearing and reappearing all over the mansion's front courtyard, taking down dozens of Kobashigawa's men with ease using his 3-section staff. "Dang, Sukuna-kun. Remind me not to get on his bad side. Nah. We can do twice no. 3 times better." Deciding it was time for them to contribute to the cause, Himiko and Jin dashed forward with their respective weapons ready. "Who the hell are these two? I thought the demon god worked alone. Who cares? Kill them." Dodging to the side, Himiko avoided a wide left swing from a large man covered in spikes. Glaring at him from under her mask, she gripped her blunted sword and swung. "Remember, Himiko, this may look like a short, blunt sword that can't cut anything, but this blade is so much more than that. Within this blunted blade is an imbued technique that can land a critical strike if you can land a hit on the 7-to-3 ratio point on your target. I'm going to show you how to find that point." Remembering all of Sukuna's training and teachings, Himiko's eyes scanned the spiked man's body and settled on a single point directly below his hip. There. Himiko slashed her blunted weapon directly at her target. Before her very eyes, a flash of black and a long line with 10 lines appeared before her. At the 7-to-3 ratio point of that line, Himiko saw a red dot explode a brilliant red. "Gah!" The man covered in spikes yelled in agony as his body was suddenly flung back with a violent spin. With a loud thud, the man landed on the ground. Himiko stared at him for a few seconds and sighed in relief as she saw him breathe. "Okay, at least now I know how much force to use," she thought before looking down at her weapon with a twinkle in her eye. Seeing that, several of Kobashigawa's men paused and looked at Himiko with caution. "Wow." Beneath her mask, a wide, confident grin grew on Himiko's face. "This is going to be fun." Off several feet away, Jin leaped over 2 rushing men as they tried to tackle him onto the ground. Grabbing his measuring tape, Jin held it out in front of him to stop a downward slice from a katana held by a woman with dark orange hair and horns on her forehead. Twisting his tape around the woman's sword, Jin yanked the blade down, bringing the woman down with her weapon. With her upper body leaning down, she was unprepared for the flying knee strike that impacted her nose, knocking her out. Sauter is taking down the ones with the more lethal and powerful quirks. Jin thought as he looked around at the knocked out or dead henchman. Thanks to all his years as a criminal and thief, Jin was capable of distinguishing the strong from the really strong. How thoughtful. Flying in and out of several henchmen was Jello. The once small, now large, Shikigami stabbed its sharp tendrils into all those it passed, inflicting them all with a lethal dose of poison that took them all down within a few minutes. Due to the fact no one besides its master and his 2 companions could see it, the Shikigami had 0 issues taking down all of its master's enemies. "Watch out, twice." Jumping back, Jin watched as a large bull-like man charged through where he once stood. Looking over to Himiko, Jin gave her a thumbs up as she landed beside him. "Thanks for the heads up, Mystique." I still don't like that name." They turned to the large bullman as he snarled in anger. His large hooves dug the ground below him. You too will die a slow and painful death for disrespecting Kobashigawa-sama. The bullman, or as many know him, Hornrush, roared. I'll take you two down, and then I'll put an end to Sukuna. Like hell you will, ugly, Himiko said as she pointed her blade at the man. Jin nodded and scanned their surroundings. Besides Hornrush, there were around 15 more henchmen staring them down. Reaching up, Jin grabbed his twin katanas and pulled them out of their sheaths. I'm still not too sure about using these yet. Nah, we're practically pros, Jin said as he and Himiko sprang to the side to avoid another charge from Hornrush. Sliding to a stop, Jin swiped his sword up to parry a metal bat that tried to bash his head in. With a spinning back kick, Jin knocked back the bat-wielding woman whose body was covered in blue fur. Spinning in place, Jin landed a thin cut on the chest of a man who tried to stab his long, sharp fingers into his stomach. What a cheap move. Attacking a man when his back is turned like a pussy. Several feet away, Himiko was performing a series of backflips to avoid an upward swipe of Hornrush's horns. Spinning in midair, Himiko pulled out one of her extra knives and drove it down into the shoulder of a man with grey skin that was directly below her. The man's singular eye grew wide as he yelled in agony before Himiko slammed her blunt sword into the side of his head, knocking him out. Standing up, Himiko watched as Jin wrapped his measuring tape around Hornrush's head as he rode on his back. Yeehaw! Ride cowboy! Get off me, you bastard! From behind, 4 of Kobashigawa's men tried to rush Himiko while she was seemingly distracted. Noticing their approach, she reached inside her knife holster's small side compartment to take out a small red pill. Unfortunately for the men who thought they would take down Himiko with her back turned, she was trained by one of the most skilled hand-to-hand fighters on the planet to be hyper-aware of her surroundings. Nice try! Himiko yelled as she popped the pill into her mouth. Biting into it, Himiko felt a swell of strength fill her as she ingested Sukuna's blood. Blood doping. It was a new method for Himiko to quickly gain the physical traits of the person whose blood she ingested using her quirk, boosting her strength and speed without having to transform fully. While this method of activating her quirk resulted in her quirk's true potential being dulled down, it still granted her a short burst of some much-needed power, which came in handy in a pinch. Gah! Ah! Crap! Himiko slid to a stop as she landed 4 perfectly executed strikes with her blunted blade onto her 4 would-be attackers with quick speed. Each of her strikes activating the blades imbued the technique of ratio into her targets. One by one, they all landed from being launched back from her attacks in a heap of mangled or bruised limbs. Breathing in exertion, Himiko looked over to the large hole leading into the mansion. Sukuna-kun. Good luck. Shimizu Sauta POV. Around this corner. He's behind that wall. Stepping around the corner of the long hallway, the terrified young woman who was crying the whole time pointed at a massive wall made up of what I could only assume was heavily fortified steel. Several pillars and expensive-looking pieces of furniture sat all around the wall. Stepping beside the woman, she squealed in fear at me but remained in place. She then pointed at the wall with a trembling finger, her expression seeming to be on the verge of throwing up. "See there?" The woman, Kobini, whispered. "Please don't kill me. I never wanted to do any of this. My parents made me get a shut it. I didn't ask for your life story," I muttered before heading towards the wall where Kobashigawa was hiding behind. "Now get out of my sight." Plus 10 SP. Yes. Thank you, Sukuna-sama, Kobini said as she quickly ran away through the halls where several unconscious or dead, blooded bodies lay. That woman seemed familiar. With playful cloud in my hands, I walked towards the wall before sensing the air in front of me shoot up with heat. This caused me to immediately dodge to the side as a high-speed beam of energy shot through the wall to my right like a hot knife through butter. Plus 5 SP, Sukuna. A woman with violet hair dressed in a hero costume said as she walked around one of the room's pillars. "The king of curses. From the way everyone talks about you, I thought you were this huge 4-armed monster with an extra set of eyes. But seeing you know, I'm a little disappointed." "That's a terrifyingly close guess. The pro-hero. Shimmer," I said while examining the woman. I remembered Shimmer from one of Izuku and Keiko's long conversations over some of Japan's rising heroes during one of their breaks. From what I could recall, Shimmer was capable of shooting high-powered blasts of energy from her hands and mouth, the latter being something she didn't do too often. Her quirk needed a constant supply of external power to work, but seeing as how several arcs of electricity sparked around her, she was fully charged. Glancing at the burning holes in the several walls her attack caused, I couldn't risk getting hit by any of her blasts. That meant getting in close to her was my best move. I couldn't give her the breathing room to launch any more of her energy blasts at me. Plus 5 SP. Oh? The great old demon god knows about little old me. I'm flattered. Shimmer said as she placed a hand over her chest with a mocking smile. I'm impressed you made it this far. Kabashigawa-san had some rather powerful grunts stationed all along his mansion leading here. Even I would have had some problems getting here unscathed. But here you are, looking pristine. How impressive you are, but is that some sweat I'm seeing on your body? Shimmer then held out a hand towards me. Sparks and arcs of energy ran up her body before coalescing into a concentrated ball in front of her palm. However, this is as far as you go. Now, then, could you do me a favor and die? In a flash, a powerful beam of energy was sent careening towards me. I slid under the energy blast above me as it drilled straight through the wall behind me. Rolling to the side, I jumped onto the right wall and created 3 ninja stars with construction. Rearing my arm back, I launched them straight at Shimmer. The hell? Shimmer cancelled her attack and leaned back to avoid the flying projectiles before making a gun shape with her hand. Several bullets of energy were shot at me from her finger, causing me to weave in and out of their trajectory. As one of the energy bullets was about to slice through my head, I swung Playful Cloud into it, causing it to explode into embers of light. Not bad. I can see why you're one of Japan's rising stars, I said as we eyed one another carefully. Still, that won't save you from me. Plus 5 SP, that's so. Shimmer grinned, her body pulsing with energy. What are you going to do? Kill me? Yes. I glitched out of Shimmer's eyesight as I used projection sorcery to close the distance between her and me quickly. The corrupt hero's eyes widened at my seemingly impossible speed, causing her to growl and slam her hands on the ground, sending a large wave of energy down the long hallway, shattering and scorching the entire floor. What an incredibly destructive ability. Cancelling my projection sorcery, I leaped over the wave of energy and used Construction's liquid metal to create 3 Wolverine-like claws over my hands. Stabbing them into the wall, I clung horizontally and eyed Shimmer. Anchoring my feet with spikes, I slammed my hand on the wall and activated one of my newest techniques. Urorm's Ice Formation. This cursed technique allows its user to lower the temperature around them to extreme levels of cold. These freezing temperatures allow the user to produce ice and frost at will, which enables them to create multiple sheets of solid ice by simply touching a surface. Frost Flash. Immediately, a wave of sharp ice spread out from my hand, heading towards Shimmer. Seeing this, Shimmer dashed off to the side and swung her arm in a wide arc, releasing a wave of energy that destroyed my ice attack. Now's my chance. Using projection sorcery, I sped off towards Shimmer and appeared right beside her, much to her shock. Plus 5 SP. How are you so fast? Shimmer roared as I swung Playful Cloud into her raised arm. She clenched her teeth in pain before she pointed her arm right at my chest. Spinning my staff around me, I smacked her forearm up, causing her to release her blast above us, striking the ceiling above. Stepping in, I swung my elbow into her left bicep with a vicious swing. Ugh. The so-called hero yelled in agony as she hobbled back, holding her ruined bicep. Glaring at me, Shimmer pointed her hand at me and blasted a beam of energy. Due to our close proximity, I barely managed to dodge the beam by leaping back. The top half of my hood was burnt away, revealing my face to Shimmer. Plus 10 SP. Kid? You're telling me the scary demon god is just some snot-nosed kid? Shimmer roared as her injured bicep began to swell an ugly shade of purple. How dare you, how dare you? Easy there, lady. You'll get wrinkles if you keep making that face. I said mockingly. Plus 5 SP, Shimmer raised both of her arms despite her pain. with the bottom of her palms pressed on one another as a large ball of power began to form rapidly. Seeing the rapid buildup of power, my eyes grew wide as I slammed my hands onto the floor. Take this. My ultimate attack. Shimmering flash. Maximum output. Frost calm. General Pyo. Himiko gasped in exhaustion as she leaped back to avoid Hornrush's overhead swing that shattered the floor where she once stood. Looking over at Jin, she saw him pick himself up from the wall where her horned enemy threw him through. Not good, Himiko whispered as she ran away from Hornrush's mad dash. Does this count as the first sign of trouble? Rumble. Himiko, Jin, and Hornrush all paused as the mansion's roof exploded in a swell of energy and large pillars of ice. The building shook as all of its windows shattered while ice encompassed everything within several meters of the mansion. Streams of white smoke and steam danced around the building as the tremors finally subsided. Kobashigawa-sama. Hornrush yelled in worry as he ignored Himiko and Jin in favor of rushing inside the ruined mansion. Sukuna-kun, Himiko muttered as she tried to run after the large bullman, only to be stopped by Jin. Jin-kun. No, we need to pull back now. Damn that. Time for round 5. Jin said as he shook his head. He motioned down at their battered bodies. We can't keep up with that level of power. We won't run, but we can't follow inside. Let's catch our breath and prepare ourselves if anyone runs out. But... Himiko tried to argue, but her sore muscles and injuries burned all around her body. Due to this being her first ever big-time fight, she wasn't used to the strain that it inflicted on her body. Okay. I'm worried about him too, Toga-chan. But I believe in his strength. Jin said as they began falling back to the still-standing shed on the mansion property. Yeah. Sukuna ain't some punk bitch. I bet he's just fine in there. Shimizu Sautapo. Shit, that was close. I threw down my ruined hari and looked around the ruined mansion around me. The long corridor that made up the hall Shimmer and I once stood in was nothing but ruined chunks of concrete and ice. Looking over my body, I saw that I only had superficial injuries on my body while my clothes were slightly charred. I was lucky enough to erect several layers of CE-reinforced ice in front of me at the last second. Otherwise, I could have been blasted away. Placing Playful Cloud into Zyko, I lifted my hands. Round deer, I said as I summoned a tall, large deer-like Shikigami. While it wasn't as big as Sukuna's version, my deer was still a foot taller than me. It then reached over with its snout and touched my extended hand. Soon enough, I felt my body grow warm as Round Deer's RCT healed my wounds. Thanks. Round Deer nodded before melting away into my shadow. I didn't expect her to have that kind of attack, I muttered as I walked towards the damaged reinforced safe room Kobashigawa was within. Shimmer must have put all her remaining energy into that move. Despite the large explosion, the large reinforced steel box had taken the blast like a champ. Even so, the large hole on its roof stood out like a sore thumb. Sukuna. I turned to my left and saw a large, raging, mutant bullman dashing toward me with cold fury in his eyes. The mutant was covered in cuts and bruises as he quickly closed the distance between us. Sighing in annoyance, I made an elephant-like hand sign. Max Elephant. Quickly rising from my shadows, Max Elephant shot out a large wave of water at the raging bullman, causing him to slow down to a stop. He raged at me while he tried to push through the torrents of water. New. Flying toward the bullman, New screeched and released several thunderbolts down at the bullman, causing him to shout in pain as his body was assaulted with several thousand bolts of electricity that were further amplified by the water surrounding him. I stopped my Shikigami's attacks as the large bullman fell forward onto the ground, his body charred and smoking. Dismissing both of my Shikigami, I made my way over to the large reinforced steel box. Damn. I'm starting to run low on CE. If I run into another strong fighter, I may be in trouble. Reaching the structure, I looked down to see Shimmer propped up against the safe box. Her eyes were glazed as her breaths came out in slow, wet wheezes. Shimmer's body was covered in cuts, burns, ice, and blood. Several parts of her costume were ripped to shreds, while her left arm and right leg were nowhere to be seen. Help me. Shimmer wheezed out as her eyes looked up at me. I stared down at her with no emotion rising within me. All I felt was, Nothing. Kneeling beside her, I stared into her eyes and laid a hand on the top of her head. Did you know? I asked. Did you know what the man you were working for did? To all those children he took and sold. Plus 10 SP. Shima's eyes slowly grew wide before she closed them. Yes. I said nothing but quickly encased her body in a block of ice. Standing up, I pulled my leg back and shattered the ice block into thousands of shards, leaving no proof that the corrupted hero Shima was ever here. I guess I'm a hero killer now. Bang! I flinched and looked down at the small red cartridge sticking out of my right shoulder. Looking over to the man I'd been searching for the past 2 years, I saw a large, victorious grin replace the brief surprise on his expression. The gun that shot me was gripped tightly in his hand. Ha ha. Your ice quirk is gone. Now you're nothing wham. Plus 10 SP. I appeared in front of him and punched him so hard he rolled across his ruined mansion. Kobashigawa tumbled on the ground in a heap, the gun he once held now on the floor in front of me. Reaching over to my shoulder, I pulled out the red cartridge bullet and saw the needle covered in some of my blood. This is... Slowly, my eyes grew wide at what this quirk-nullifying bullet meant. Kobashigawa tried to push himself up as he cradled his shattered bloody nose in his left hand. He turned to me with a vicious glare as he finally stood to his feet. He spat out some blood and grinned at me as he popped his knuckles. Not bad. It seems that even without your quirk, you're still pretty tough. Blurring in front of the crime lord, I landed a vicious punch into his stomach that pushed him off the floor. Plus 5 SP. From there, I moved in and out, landing punch after punch into his stomach, chest, and face without letting him realize he was being attacked. With a front kick, I sent Kobashigawa flying back until his back slammed into his safe box. Gwa! Plus 10 SP. Dashing in front of him, Kobashigawa wailed out as my hook punch crashed into the side of his face. Reaching out, I grabbed his jacket and slammed him back into the side of his reinforced steel box before spinning low to land a manji kick on his left cheek, launching across his ruined mansion until he crashed straight through one of the few remaining standing walls. Using projection sorcery, I reappeared in front of him before he could fall and struck a mountain breaker double punch onto his chest. Blood exploded out of his mouth, nose, and eyes as his battered body crashed through the wall behind him. My breathing calmed down as I watched his body slam onto the floor. A pile of expensive paintings beneath him was soon ruined as his blood spread out underneath him. Walking next to him, I bent down and grabbed his hair. Yanking him up, I held his bruised and ruined face close to the red cartridge I had in my fingers. Answer. Where did you get this? I bought it from the Shaiha Saikai. To take away your quirk. So I could kill you. Is that so? I said before placing the bullet into my pocket. I then held out my hand and created a block of ice in my palm, shocking him. Plus 15 SP. That's impossible. You shouldn't be able to use your quirk. Kobashigawa muttered in despair before I created a very sharp icicle in my hands. He stared at it with fear before I jammed it into his shoulder. Ugh. Tell me, where did you buy this bullet? I said with a flat, even tone. Twisting the icicle in his shoulder, the man grunted in pain. I won't ask you twice. General POV. He's coming out. Jin said loudly, gaining Himiko and Jello's attention. They all turned to see Sukuna stalk out of the ruins of the mansion, but before they could wave at him, they paused. The stone-cold expression on their friend's face set them all on edge. Pausing, Sukuna looked around at all the unconscious or dead bodies with an impassive glance. He quickly noticed that the only dead bodies lying around were from the goons he and Jello killed. Slowly, a small grin grew on his face as he turned to where Himiko, Jin, and Jello stood floated. Not bad, you two, Sukuna said as he rubbed the back of his head. All the traces of his overpowering negative energy receded back into his body. I'm impressed. Sukuna-kun. Himiko yelled as she ran over to jump into his arms. She snuggled into his chest as Jin walked over. Is it done? Jin asked. Hearing Jin's question, Himiko stepped back, a severe expression on her face. Sukuna frowned and slowly nodded. Yeah, it's done. Suguna nodded before lifting a small red carriage with a needle on one end. But it's far from over. Midoriya Izuku pushed himself off the ground, determination written on his face as he embarked on his morning jog through the streets of Musutafu. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over the city, and he could feel the cool morning breeze against his skin. With each step, he focused on his breathing, body movements, and rhythm. Remember, Izuku, controlling one's breathing can be the difference between losing and winning. If your breathing is wrong, then your body and mind will be too. Sauta said from his spot on Izuku's back as the green-haired boy struggled to do push-ups. As he ran, Izuku reflected on the training and teachings given to him by his friend Sensei, Shimizu Sauta. Smiling at the special memories he and Sauta had together caused Izuku to speed up. Despite being quite the sadistic teacher, Sauta's training sure showed its results on his body. After all, a 12-kilometer run was a cakewalk for him now. All his training would soon pay off when it helped him secure his spot at UA. Once he got there, his dreams of becoming a hero who saves everyone, just like All Might, would one day become a reality, quirk or no quirk. This thought motivated him as his feet pounded rhythmically against the pavement. He envisioned himself breaking through his current limits, reaching new heights, and rescuing those in need. Yes, Izuku, you can be a hero. Sauta said as he placed a hand on Izuku's trembling shoulder. A hero? Of course, you can become a hero. Keiko exclaimed with a fist pump from where they sat on the grass. That's right. I can be a hero. I just have to work twice 4 times harder than everyone else. Izuku said as he was all but sprinting now. He wasn't even aware he left his own city. Pushing himself even faster, Izuku finally began to feel his legs burning, but he embraced the discomfort. This was more than just a jog. It was a step toward his dreams. A demonstration of his relentless heroic spirit. He kept running, fueled by hope and determination, ready to face whatever obstacles awaited him on his path to heroism. Ah, look how pathetic he is. Right? A guy with a villainous quirk like him wants to train to be a hero. What a joke. Izuku's legs slammed themselves on the ground, causing his shoes to skid along the sidewalk. Coming to a stop, the green-haired boy turned his head over to where he heard the voices. Suddenly, a loud thud followed by a cough echoed out from a nearby alleyway. Walking closer, Izuku leaned his head around the corner. Standing over downed purple-haired boy who seemed to be lacking some sleep were 2 boys around Izuku's age dressed in tracksuits. The boy on the left had combed back dark red hair, while the other had short teal-colored hair. Izuku felt his muscles twitch as the teal-haired boy reared his leg back, ready to strike the downed purple-haired boy. Stop that! Izuku yelled, dashing into the alleyway. Leave him alone. What the hell? Get lost. The dark red-haired boy, Azuma, growled out. His eyes glared at Izuku. This doesn't have anything to do with you. What are you doing to him? Izuku ignored Azuma's comment and stepped closer to the 3. The teal-haired boy, Ito, raised a brow at Izuku and looked down at the boy, holding his stomach in pain. The purple-haired boy, Shinso Hitoshi, looked over at Izuku in confusion. The green-haired boy stopped a few feet away, his equally green eyes looking down at him with concern. This guy? He your friend or something? Ito asked while pointing at Hitoshi, who sat up against the brick wall behind him. His eyes stared at Izuku incredulously. Izuku frowned and turned to Hitoshi, once again ignoring the 2 boys, further agitating them. Shinso frowned and turned to Izuku. Who the hell are you? I don't need your help. Hitoshi said as he tried to stand, but Ito knocked him back down. Stay down where you belong, you villain. Stop that. Izuku said, his body moving before his mind could think. Ito grinned at the challenge and swung his right leg to kick Izuku's side. Raising his leg, Izuku shin-checked Ito, causing the teal-haired boy to wince. Stepping in, Izuku sent 2 open-palm strikes onto Ito's chest. Coughing, the teal-haired boy stumbled back before he received a front kick from Izuku, knocking him on his back. What the hell? Azuma muttered before he activated his quirk in his panic. Azuma's quirk, tongue tape, allowed him to shoot out his tongue 5 meters at his target with around 200 newtons of force. It's so slow, Izuku thought as he weaved under the tongue. Or am I that fast? Due to the boy's open use of his quirk, Izuku no longer had the need to hold back to just open-palmed strikes. Lifting his fists in front of his chin, Izuku dashed into Azuma's personal space and struck the boy with a solid right hook into the side of his head. Izuku watched Azuma fall headfirst to the floor before grabbing the boy's shirt, preventing him from falling headfirst onto the concrete. "Ah, I didn't mean," Izuku muttered and turned to look at Ito, who quickly stood up and ran away. "Why, you freak." "No, wait. What about your friend?" Izuku lowered Azuma onto the floor as Ito left the alley. Scratching his head, Izuku looked over at Hitoshi, who was staring at Izuku wide-eyed. Smiling awkwardly, Izuku stepped forward and held a helpful hand out. "Are you okay? They didn't hurt you too much, did they?" "No? I mean, yeah. I'm fine," Hitoshi said as he snapped out of his stupor, numbly accepting Izuku's help. "How did you do that? Do you have some sort of speed quirk or something?" "Speed quirk?" Izuku asked with a tilt of his head. "No, nothing like that. I'm actually quirkless." "Ah, I'm Midoriya Izuku. Nice to meet you." Hitoshi stood in surprise at the apparently quirkless kid who was capable of doing something so amazing. Something he couldn't do despite having a quirk. Sure, with his quirk, brainwashing, he could put someone in a state where they were forced to obey whatever he commands. Hitoshi could have easily stopped his attackers if he had activated his quirk. But if he did do that, then he'd just be proving all those who called him a villain in the making correct. "I'm Shinso Hitoshi. It's nice to meet you, too." General POV, what the hell? Coming to a stop, a yellow-skinned police officer looked up at what could be called an impressive ice sculpture, were it not for the fact that it was a gruesome display of violence. A man was propped up in midair by a long spike made of ice. The spike holding the man was skewered straight through his crotch area and extended all the way upwards through his midsection and exited out of his mouth. Dozens of spikes of ice were jutting out of his body as if he were a human pincushion, each of which was covered with frozen blood. What could have done this? The yellow-skinned police officer muttered. "A monster." Jumping in fear, the officer spun to see Japan's number 2 hero, Todoroki Enji, otherwise known as Endeavor. Endeavor is a tall, sturdily built man with a very muscular physique. He has short crimson hair, which he wears spiked up around his head, and sharp turquoise eyes. His beard and mustache were made up of dancing flames, showing off his incredible control over his quirk. His hero costume is comprised of a tight, navy turquoise bodysuit, with flames streaming across his chest, upper torso, arms, and, most prominently, his shoulders. Flames danced around his eyes, working like a makeshift mask. He also wore tall boots that appeared to be either made of fire themselves or constantly left alight, as only their soles and laces were visible around the flames. He sports white braces on his lower arms, styled in a cage pattern. Around his waist was a blue belt with a pouch on either side. Scanning the area, Endeavor took in the sight of the large ruined mansion and all the blocks of ice covering the ground and destroyed structures. Dozens of officers and a few heroes moved around to try and render aid to the survivors, who seemed to be made up of several hired criminals and hired mercenaries. Ignoring the officer, Endeavor walked up to the gruesome ice sculpture and placed a hand on its base. Gradually, the sculpture melted into a large puddle of water, causing the brutalized corpse to fall to the ground. Looking down at the body's face, the number 2 hero frowned. "Can't say you didn't get what you deserved," Endeavor said. "That's not a very heroic thing to say, now is it?" Turning his head, Endeavor watched as a blonde-haired man with large red wings descended from the sky. Hawks. Hawks, or Tokomi Kigo, has a hero costume that resembled that of an aviator's uniform. He wears a black shirt with a wavy golden pattern, over which he has a modified tan jacket with a high collar and slits over his shoulders to accommodate his wings. The insides and cuffs of the sleeves are lined with white fur and black gloves. He has a red square-shaped lobe piercing in each ear. A rounded, yellow-tinted visor sat over his eyes to protect them from the harsh winds or dust whenever he took flight. Endeavor, Hawks smiled slightly before a frown grew on his face at the sight of the body. It is him. Kobashigawa. Endeavor said nothing to the young hero, only responding with a slight nod of his head. Looking over to a nearby group of medics, Endeavor waved them over. The 4 medics rushed in but froze in fear, disgust, and shock at the sight of the mangled man below. Wordlessly, they got to work at gathering the corpses to place on the designated pile near the entrance of the mansion, where several other bodies lay. So, any ideas on who could have done this? Hawks asked as he followed after Endeavor. I think you already know. Yeah. I talked to a few of the survivors. Well, at least the ones who weren't scared into silence. This was all the work of our good friend Sukuna. Hawks frowned as he rubbed the side of his head. It seems we need to change his quirk description to some sort of ice quirk. A powerful ice quirk. Mako said Sukuna's quirk was some sort of telekinesis ability. This contradicts that. Endeavor kneeled down and pressed a hand on the ground. With careful control, he began to melt the ice all around the mansion, allowing the police, medics, and heroes to work unimpeded. I'm starting to think that Sukuna has more than one quirk. More than one quirk. Hawks frowned. That can't be. Some of the witnesses said that Sukuna didn't come alone. He brought help this time. But even so, they didn't mention anything about Sukuna's allies using any ice quirk. If Sukuna does indeed have more than one meta ability, this could only mean one thing. I'm surprised. Endeavor stood up and turned to Hawks with a careful and suspicious expression. For someone your age, you seem to know about that man. Hawks nodded and looked around at the ruined mansion. Walls were toppled over, furniture was crushed and torn to shreds, the roof was nowhere to be seen, and the floors were burnt and smashed. I do, Hawks admitted. Call it a job requirement. I see, Endeavor replied, not too interested. Regardless, the possibility that Sukuna could have more than one quirk places him on a completely new level of danger. He needs to be taken down. Immediately. He can't be allowed to do as he pleases any longer. Does that mean you're joining the task force? Hawks questioned. No, I will be leading my own task force comprised of myself and my sidekicks. If Sukuna is as strong as I suspect he is, I should be the only one capable of taking him down. Endeavor said before he began walking off. There's nothing more to do here. I'll leave the rest to you. Hawks smiled awkwardly at his idol and waved goodbye. As he watched Endeavor finally leave the premises, Hawks looked around with a sigh. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his phone and dialed a very familiar contact. The Hero Public Safety Commission chairman. Report, Hawks. A low, calm voice spoke from the other line. The situation regarding Sukuna has changed. Hawks spoke into his phone, and his once lax expression turned serious. He's much stronger than we initially thought. I believe he might be connected to that man. Very well. We'll proceed with Plan C then. So you'll be sending in my senpai? Hawks asked as he used his feathers to help the first responders. A long silence was shared between him and the chairman. Yes, we can't risk Sukuna's existence reaching the public and disturbing the peace. We're sending in Nagant. Images changed one after another in rapid succession. My sight trailed the broad city skylines of Kyoto before it suddenly changed to a small shopping center within Tokyo. My vision changed again to a rundown residential area before moving on to the bustling city streets of Shibuya. With each change of scenery, I felt the growing headache hurt even more. Despite the pain, I continued switching between the dozens upon dozens of viewpoints. All of this was in an effort to find any plague mask-wearing individuals or a small little girl. Sauter. 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 +5 SP. I was snapped out of my shared sight with my crows by a very annoyed Mai. She had her hands on her hips while she looked at me with narrowed eyes. Her sharp expression soon gave way to concern as she tilted her head in worry. Are you okay? You seem distracted. I'm fine. I was just lost in my thoughts, I said before looking down at the fold-up table where 2 armored arms rested. Beside them was a small chest plate and a backpack where slim but large batteries sat within. Where are we at? Due to the subject being changed back to her inventions, I grinned and motioned to the nearby laptop that was connected to the arms. All the final touches are done. We just need you to finish programming the changes to your code, and we can get started testing my baby. Right. I'll get to that. +5 SP. Walking up to the laptop, I began to type away several new lines of code while also changing some of my past work. As I worked, I looked up to see the large quirk testing room I had rented out for my Izuku, Keiko, Himiko, and my uncle Jin. The room itself was meant for those who wanted to use or train their quirks within relative safety and to avoid getting in trouble for illegal quirk usage in a public space. Over the past few weeks of searching for Eri, I had decided I was sick of having to keep up the charade of being an orphan and having to send a clone in my place to the orphanage. With careful planning and some expensive forged documents, I had Himiko transform into Jin and adopt me from the orphanage. This was mostly due to her being able to maintain a professional demeanor longer than Jin. The forged documents I had bought from a guy I know gave Jin an entirely new life with no history of any of his past crimes. On Himiko's suggestion, Jin was also my estranged uncle, who had a falling out with my father, causing the news of my parents' death to not reach him until very recently. In order to make it up to his brother, Jin had walked into the orphanage and promptly adopted me. The caretakers and director looked a little too relieved that I was finally leaving. Things got a little more complicated when I told Keiko about Jin. She had rained several questions on the man when I finally introduced him to her. Apparently, Keiko didn't appreciate the fact that my uncle had left me alone in the orphanage for so many years due to the dispute between him and my father. Jin, the actual Jin, was constantly on his toes around Keiko, but he did rather well sticking to the story the three of us came up with. Even after I told her I didn't hold Jin's absence against him, Keiko still gave him the cold shoulder from time to time while clinging to me. Glancing up from the laptop, I watched four of my friends chatting about something I couldn't quite hear. Jin was wearing a black and white mask that resembled his original one, but with enough changes that they couldn't be mistaken as one and the same. We excused this away by saying Jin was in a terrible accident that left his face scarred and sensitive to the air. Thankfully, I had some sickeningly nice and understanding friends who accepted our excuse. All right. All ready. I told Mai, who bounced with excitement. She then called everyone over, causing them to all approach the table where the armored arms and chest plate rested. It's not very cute, Himiko muttered as she reached out to touch the arms. Jin walked up behind her and peered down at the armored arms as Himiko played with their fingers. How neat. Can they blast energy beams out of their palms? Jin asked as he and Himiko played thumb wars with the arms. It's amazing, Hatsume-san, Sauta-san. Izuku said with excitement in his eyes as he looked over the support gear Mai and I worked on for him. Can this really help me become a hero? Sure can. Mai walked around the table, pushing past Keiko, Himiko, and Jin. She grabbed Izuku's wrist and all but yanked him over. Wordlessly, I began strapping the chest plate and armored arms onto him as Mai adjusted the straps over Izuku's limbs. Wow, these really are amazing. Keiko walked over to watch as Mai and I finished putting the support gear on Izuku. So with this, Izuku-kun will be able to better keep up with everyone else, right? Exactly. Not exactly, I said, cutting off Mai's high energy. +10 SP. She walked over to me and rubbed the top of her head on the bottom of my chin with a pout. This gear won't be able to keep up with those who have a good handle on their quirks. At least, not yet. Mai had some earlier designs we worked off from, but we need to test out how these arms perform first before improving them. What Debbie Downer said. Mai then unplugged the cables that connected the arms to the laptop. However, once we test these babies, I'll be able to vastly improve them with the data we collect from their performance today. So, are you guys going to do a bunch of boring tests then? How lame. Himiko sighed and took a seat on one of the fold-out chairs beside the table. I don't know, it could be fun. I wanna go home. Jin said as he took a seat next to Himiko. Nah, nothing like that, I said while taking off my jacket. I walked out into the center of the training ground and rolled my shoulders. We're going to do something more practical. Combat training. Keiko, Izuku, get over here. Today, you two will be working together to take me down. +5 SP. +10 SP. What? Keiko asked in surprise. But that isn't fair. With the added arms, Izuku-kun may be stronger than you now, Su-chan. Plus, I've gotten a lot stronger with my own quirk. She's right, Sauta-san. Isn't this too much? Suddenly, they both blinked in confusion as an oppressive wave of power swept over them. Before they could question it, the mysterious wave vanished. Aren't you two kids getting overconfident? I began to warm up by hopping from foot to foot as I rolled my arms. How about this? If either of you manages to land even a single blow on me, I'll take everyone here on a shopping spree. How's that for incentive? Plus 5 SP, plus 10 SP, plus 10 SP, plus 10 SP, shopping. Keiko muttered, her eyes wide with excitement. A large, confident smile spread over her face as she ran over in front of me. Okay, let's do this. Hey-san. Izuku yelled in shock at how quickly his friend changed. Ooh. Things are finally getting interesting. Himiko grinned and brought out 2 pom-poms from somewhere. Go, Izuku-kun. Go, Keiko-chan. Fight. Fight. I could have sworn you'd be cheering for Sauta, Jin mumbled before lifting a flag with a chibi face of myself. You got this, bro. I mean, nephew. Win. Win. It's okay, Izuku, I said while easing into a loose fighting stance. Show me the results of all your years of training. Plus 20 SP, Sauta-san. Izuku uttered softly. Taking a deep breath, he slid into his own stance and began to glare at me. Very well. I'll show you what I'm capable of. I grinned at them both and beckoned them on. Let's get this show on the road then. Clap. I backflipped away as a barrier of blue energy swiped past where I once stood. Not bad. Keiko. Right for the throat. Plus 5 SP, I have you to thank for that. Keiko smiled at me and followed after me. Clapping her hands, Keiko unleashed 3 more waves of energy, all of which took on the shapes of fists. I danced around each of them and flipped over low kick thrown by Izuku. With a glare, he spun around and flicked out 2 snap kicks at my midsection. Grinning, I moved out of range of the first kick before slapping his second kick to the side. Let's see how well that chest plate holds up. With a flick, I punched him on his chest using some minor CE enhancement, causing him to grunt as his body rolled back several meters. Plus 5 SP. Plus 10 SP, Izuku-kun. Keiko yelled as she ran sideways. Clapping her hands, Keiko hopped on a blue disc she conjured below her feet. Gliding across the floor to float in front of Izuku, Keiko pushed her hands in front of her. In a flash of blue, a wide barrier the size of a car rushed at me. From behind the barrier, Izuku leaned down and rushed me, using the barrier as a blind spot. A distraction. Not bad, you two. I leaned to the side to avoid Izuku's flying kick after he used the barrier as a launching pad, resulting in him flying behind me. Seeing their combined attack fail, Keiko clapped her hands again, launching 3 flying pillars of energy at me with a wince. I pushed myself off the ground and reappeared in front of Keiko, surprising her with my speed. F fast. Really? I suppose we have to up your running exercises then. Jige. Plus 5 SP. Reaching out, I grabbed both of her hands and used them as leverage to land a strong donkey kick at Izuku's face from where he tried to land a sneak attack. Using my abdominal strength, I flipped over Keiko and landed behind her with her wrists still in my grasp. Keiko's arms were locked in front of her as she failed to escape me as her back was pressed against me, trapping her. Still too stiff. I pushed her forward and landed a good kick onto her back, sending her stumbling into Izuku. Are you okay, hey-san? Izuku asked Keiko, who quickly nodded as they turned to me. I grinned at them as I slid my hands into my pockets. Don't tell me that's all you two got. Not even close. Izuku and Keiko both said in unison. Turning to one another, they nodded before rushing forward. Izuku reached me first and threw out a right punch at my head. I easily dodged it and moved back to avoid a left punch. From there, our fight turned into a dance where he tried to use every combo he had in his arsenal. Unlike before, his speed was much greater, probably around a 5% boost, thanks to the armored arms. As we moved, I noticed that he was purposely keeping himself in my direct line of sight. So that's how it is. Now, Izuku-kun. Right. I smiled and remained in place as Izuku flipped away just as Keiko sent a very large and very fast barrier right at me. It was the size of a small house, but it wasn't all that thick. It seemed that Keiko had exchanged the durability and strength of the barrier in favor of increasing its size and speed. Not bad. Crack. Stepping beside Keiko, Izuku watched the loud plume of dust from Keiko's attack slowly begin to settle. Keiko's breathing was quick, and sweat covered her face. She then fell onto her knees as all her remaining strength left her. Did that get him? Izuku muttered, his posture stiff. I don't know, maybe. I said as I peered into the plume of dust. Do you see him? Plus 20 SP, plus 10 SP. Both Keiko and Izuku spun to see me standing in between them. Before he could move, I spun on my left foot and kicked Izuku's exposed stomach with a strong back kick. The boy gasped as he was launched back, his body curling up in pain. Keiko was about to yell out his name, but I grabbed the top of her head and slammed her onto the ground. Seeing both of them down for the count, I turned to an incredibly happy Mai. Himiko had a pout on her face due to the loss of a free shopping trip, but she didn't seem surprised at my win. Jin was giving me a standing ovation while yelling bravo here and there. How's that? Did you get any good data? Tons. Oh. How about we switch out the baby's current flex ring for one that allows a wider range of motion? That might work, but it might also rip Izuku's arms off. That's okay. We'll just make Midoriya-kun some new arms. I smiled at Mai as we made our way back to her house. Izuku and Keiko both groggily went home together, while Himiko wanted to go buy some ingredients for tonight's dinner. Jin was promoted to bag carrier by her and was promptly dragged with her towards the store. That left Mai and me to carry all of our equipment back to her home. Normally, this would take more people due to the weight of the gear, but I had no issues carrying it. Over my shoulder was a large metal case where the damaged arms and chest plates sat, while the fold-up table was strapped to my back. Mai walked beside me with a large backpack full of her tools and laptop as she scribbled away new designs and ideas on her handy notepad. Heh. I mumbled as Mai suddenly held my free left hand. She wasn't paying attention to me as we continued to walk down the city streets. What's the matter, Mai? HM? What do you mean? Mai asked, genuinely confused. Well, you're holding my hand, I said, raising up our joined hands. She then blinked and made a softer noise. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to hold it, she said as her fingers tightened around my own. Do you not want to? We continued walking, my eyes focused on her face. Feeling my gaze, Mai's cheeks slowly began to redden. I then shrugged and looked back up. Is she? No. This is Mai we're talking about. She's probably worried she might wander off, so she's using me as a guide or something. No, it's fine. Plus 20 SP. I adjusted the metal case over my shoulder and missed the wide smile that grew on Mai's face, something she wasn't even aware she did. The two of us continued walking hand in hand until we reached her home. Once there, we let each other go and walked inside her house. I greeted both of her parents before placing her baby down into her little work area in her room. Okay, don't work on these too much, and try and get some sleep, I said while rolling my weary shoulder. Mai walked up to the case and snapped it open while she brought out her tool bag from her backpack. Don't think I haven't noticed the small bags under your eyes. Plus 10 SP. What sleep in the face of innovation? Mai said as she sat on one of the armored arms on her work table. Just as she was about to undo the screws holding the forearm plates down with a screwdriver, I placed a hand over her own, stopping her. I then gave her a stern look that she tried to squirm away from. Mai. Fine. I'll get some sleep. Happy. Plus 20 SP. Taking my hand away, I gave her a nod with a smile. Yep. That way, you won't blow these or me up accidentally. Again. Plus 10 SP. I said I was sorry. I didn't know that baby number 34 was going to blow up during the testing phase. Tell that to my eyebrows. They grew back. General POV, what a pain in the ass, said a man wearing a thick pair of sunglasses despite the night sky. He had brushed back brown hair while he wore a pristine three-piece white suit. The man was sitting in the back of a white SUV as it drove through the streets of Shinjuku. He looked beside him, where a young little girl with black hair pulled up into twin tails cried loudly. Her once frilly pink dress was now stained red with blood. "Shut the hell up, you damn kid. Mommy. I want my mommy," the girl cried, only to be silenced once the man smacked her on the cheek. "You better learn to follow directions. Otherwise, you'll end up like your mommy," the man said mockingly. He then looked over to his driver. "How much longer?" "Just another 10 minutes, Takakura-san." Nodding, Takakura looked down beside his leg, where a small paper bag containing a few thousand yen was sitting. What a waste of time. That bitch didn't even have enough to cover the drive here, much less pay off her debts to us. He then looked over to the silently crying girl. "That means her debt is now yours to pay. You got that, you damn brat." The now orphaned girl said nothing as she tried to press her body against the car door in an attempt to get as far as she could from Takakura. Grinning in amusement, Takakura pulled out his phone and began to scroll through several images. The images were of a middle-aged black-haired woman being punched, cut up, and kicked by two men in suits. The pictures scrolled one after another, each one showing the woman in a worse state than before. The last photo, a selfie of Takakura making a peace sign with a dead woman in the background, could be seen on the phone, causing the man to chuckle in amusement. "Heh," the driver said as he squinted his eyes. "What's that dash cablum?" Without warning, the vehicle in front of them that held his underlings exploded in a ball of flames. Freaking out, Takakura's driver spun the wheel, but the SUV was suddenly launched into the air, spinning through the air before it fell roof down on the road. A loud screeching filled the inside of the vehicle as it slid across the pavement, muffled by the scared yells from within the car. "Iguchi! You dumb bastard! What the hell did you do?" Takakura yelled in anger as he picked himself up from the roof of the SUV. A large scratch stretched across his forehead to his left cheek, spilling blood down his face. He then looked off to the side and found that the little girl he took was no longer beside him. "What?" The loud sound of glass shattering stole Takakura's attention as he watched his driver, Iguchi, be grabbed by an arm. With a mighty pull, Iguchi was pulled out of the SUV with a frightened scream. Takakura remained silent as a very bright flash of orange light and a wave of heat struck him. What is this? What's going on?" It was then that a charred, smoking skeleton fell down in front of the broken windshield. Takakura looked on in silent horror as he noticed the lone gold tooth on the jaw's central incisor, exactly where Iguchi had his own. "Iguchi!" Takakura muttered before the door beside him was ripped clean from its hinges. Before he could react, Takakura's left ankle was grabbed by a powerful vice grip. "Gah!" He yelled as he was dragged out of the vehicle, his face scraping along the ground where several shards of glass sat scattered. Looking around wildly from his upside-down position, Takakura screamed until a martial arts shoe kicked his teeth in. "Shut up," Sukuna muttered before looking down at a phone with a green case. On the case was a pair of bunny ears. Placing the phone in one of his pockets, Sukuna lifted Takakura up, only to drop him on his head, causing the man to cry in pain. Crawling onto his back, Takakura was about to beg for his life when he finally noticed the tattoos on Sukuna's body. "It's you," Takakura muttered with dread. Sukuna said nothing as he raised his hand, summoning a ball of fire in front of his palm. Takakura's eyes widened with terror, seeing the burning ball of death. "Are you with the Shai Hasaikai?" "Me? Am not with those guys," Takakura said. Unfortunately, that was not the answer the King of Curses was looking for. "No, wait." Watching the now burning body with expressionless eyes, Sukuna walked away as the man's screams eventually died down. Stopping mid-step, Sukuna looked around at the dozens of scared observers without a care. Without saying a word, Sukuna leaped away from the scene, leaving behind dozens of scared observers who would all quickly spread what they saw that night. Shimizu Sauta POV. Photo manipulation is Hazabana Nako's cursed technique. It was one of the newly added techniques. I gained it a week ago during a gold tier pull. Not much was known about the technique due to its short appearance during the Shibuya arc in JJK. However, from what was shown of the technique before Sukuna killed Nanako, it appeared to give her the ability to manipulate the subject within any photograph she took. That would have explained how she and Mimiko survived Jogo's attack. Its true potential was made clear to me after all of the technique's information was poured into my brain. As I suspected, photo manipulation did give me control over the subjects within the photo I took with a cursed tool that was her phone. Once the photo is taken, I can move, cut out, or even delete anything I take a picture of. However, using this technique requires a lot of CE, especially the option to delete the subject of my choosing. That was probably what Nanako was planning to do to Sukuna before he killed her. Though, I doubted that would have been enough to kill him. This was the technique that allowed me to remove the girl from the car earlier tonight from the men who murdered her mother. Using the technique had eaten up around 30% of my overall CE. And all I really did was move the girl over to another photo I took, which was the rooftop I was standing on before I attacked the two vehicles. Cutting a subject from the picture would take up 55% of my CE, and deleting something would cost 75%. It was an extremely useful technique in a controlled situation, but the CE it takes up made it a useless technique in actual combat. Even so, it's what allowed me to move the girl from a tight situation. The poor girl was confused and scared of me at first, but after I messed up my hair and removed my tattoos, I comforted her as best as I could before taking her to one of the best orphanages in Japan. The orphanage that I had a heavy hand in molding ever since my actions as Sukuna began. I used around 60% of all the money I took from my escapades to fund the operation. At the same time, I made sure to take a closer look at all of its employees to make sure they did their job well. I even introduced myself to the director in charge of the orphanage. He was suspicious of me at first, but after 2 years of working together, the man now trusted me and my intentions heavily. After explaining the little girl's situation, the director took her with a heavy heart. As I left, the girl had a sad and lifeless expression. Seeing that caused me to regret not being able to save her mother. But I failed to get to them in time. Using construction, I gave the little girl a large rabbit plush toy. She tentatively took the plush before being guided inside by one of the orphanage caretakers. Taking down Kobashigawa ended up causing more problems than I had hoped. With such a large power gap left behind due to his death, dozens of criminals have come out of hiding to try and fill that gap themselves, all in hopes of becoming one of Japan's newest and cruelest crime lords. Unfortunately for them, I was still here. Damn, I'm starting to sound like Batman. Even so, I had to focus on my primary objective. Find, overhaul, and save Eri. Jumping from rooftop to rooftop, I scanned the streets below underneath my black hood. Landing on a tall light pole, the people below were unaware I was above them with the light below me. Just as one of the bar-hopping college students was about to look up, I was gone. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of searching and still nothing. I frowned as I scaled the side of a tall apartment building. Reaching the top, I landed in a crouch and leaped toward the building across the street. With a roll, I sprang up and landed on the roof's edge. How frustrating. Some would question why I was so pressed on finding Chisaki and his goon squad. It wasn't because I was interested in fighting or killing him. No, I needed to find Eri and get her away from him. From the snapshots they showed us from the original canon, the poor girl was sliced and pulled to pieces who knows how many times. It was why I had my crows search for her right away ever since I acquired Maimai's technique. Much to my annoyance, after so many years of searching high and low, I've yet to find a sign of the Shai Hasaikai. I just needed Chisaki to slip up once, but the man has been cautious. But knowing that his quirk-nullifying bullets were now on the streets, I had to boost my search. I wouldn't let Eri suffer a second longer if I could help it. Something's coming. I blasted off to the side just in time as a high-speed object crashed where I once was. The corner of the roof cracked as a long, pink, and indigo bullet rested within the ruined rooftop. Plus 15 SP. A bullet. I calculated the bullet's trajectory and where the crack of the rifle sounded out from. I spun to the right and looked straight at a high-rise building in the distance. There, crouched on its rooftop, was a figure with long pink and indigo hair in a high ponytail. Her most distinguished feature was the long sniper rifle sticking out of her right elbow. Bang! General POV. A few weeks ago. It's all a sham. We have two heroes pushing civilians to commit crimes. Afterward, they turn them into the police and collect rewards for capturing them. A blonde man wearing a suit said. His glasses reflected the small streams of light coming in from the small gaps between the shades within the large, dark office he was in, giving his spectacles an eerie glow. This man was the Hero Public Safety Commission chairman. It wouldn't do for us to bring any official charges against them, but they must be dealt with. The chairman finished. Standing across from the man was a woman. She had long hair wrapped into a ponytail and secured with a hair clip. She wore a hero costume, which consisted of a simple dark sleeveless turtleneck jumpsuit with 2 plates underneath her chest, a utility belt, and knee guards. She also wore white boots and a long scouter over her right eye, shaped like a lightning bolt. The woman's name was Tsutsumi Kaina, otherwise known by her fellow heroes as Lady Nagant. You think that by killing them, society will be improved? Kaina said, her eyes half-lidded. The chairman frowned at her words but remained silent. If we don't show people the bad side of things, that's brainwashing by omission. Nagant. Wouldn't you agree that the most important thing for us to do is to maintain the hope that public-facing heroes have brought into the world? The chairman said as he walked around the lone table within the room. Sitting down, he looked up at an unconvinced Kaina with cold, calculating eyes. If this is the only way, then what does the future hold for us? Your duty is to follow orders. The chairman said firmly. This is not a job-ring. Ring. A soft ringtone interrupted the chairman. Pausing, he kept his eyes trained on Kaina before reaching over to his phone, which was resting on the corner of the desk beside a laptop. Lifting his phone to his face, his eyes narrowed before turning to Kaina. Excuse me for a moment. Report, Hawks. Kaina's right arm twitched as she looked away as the chairman spoke on his phone. As the man talked, Kaina's mind swirled and fizzled as her thoughts threatened to drown her. Very well. We'll proceed with Plan C then. Yes, we can't risk Sukuna's existence reaching the public and disturbing the peace. The chairman said before turning to Kaina with an expression that she'd never seen on the man before. We're sending in Nagant. Hanging up the phone, the chairman crossed his fingers in front of him. Change of target. You are to find the man known as Sukuna and eliminate him at all costs. This will be the most important job of your career. Is that clear? Sukuna. Kaina said with recognition. I thought there was already a task force focused on him. There is, the chairman nodded. But after several months of nothing, we can't afford to wait on them to do their job any longer. Sukuna needs to be removed from society at once. You have full access to any and all resources you require to get this done. You are to begin immediately. Understood. Kaina looked down at her right arm before turning to the chairman's head. Her eyes grew cold and lifeless before she closed them. Taking a deep breath, Kaina nodded and walked out of the office. After this, I'll stop this madness. Kaina thought as she walked down the hall to prepare for her next and final mission for the Hero Public Safety Commission.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.